Chapter 899. As soon as he learned that the Heaven Barbarian city was in trouble, he immediately rushed towards the city without stopping. His face was filled with worry. He was worried about the safety of the people in the city. At the same time, in different locations, there were also people in other areas of the wild broken world who wore the same worried expression as Ning Fan. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's face was filled with worry. Currently, he was sitting cross-legged on a continent filled with demon cultivators, trying his best to heal his injuries. Venerated Ao Xian was sitting beside him. He was also healing his injuries with a gloomy expression. It had been more than a day since the blood sacrifice ceremony began. Both of their injuries were caused by entering the gate of death by mistake. Their injuries were extremely serious and they could not use their demon power recklessly for the time being. Every once in a while, a report would be sent to the two venerated demons. Before they read the report, their faces were filled with anticipation. However, after reading the report, they were always disappointed. Still can't find them. Can't we find any of the 7 barbarian statues? Another disappointing report was sent back. Venerated Ao Xian's face was filled with anger. He directly crushed the jade slip that contained the report. His face immediately turned abnormally red due to his anger. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon's expression was extremely unpleasant. He kept activating the compass in his hand. The needle of the compass spun randomly but it could not point to a certain direction. I still can't find them. I can't sense anything at all. Damn the human race. It's all because of the Heaven Sealing Immortal Edict. Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon said viciously. In the minds of the two venerated demons, the blood sacrifice ceremony was supposed to be a success. However, they never expected that the human race would activate the Heaven Sealing Immortal Edict at a critical moment to resist. In order to awaken the passage to the ancient realm of Heavenly Desolate in the wild world, the demon race prepared 7 ancient statues which corresponded to the 7 barbarian ancestors. Each of the ancient statues was indispensable to awaken the passage. However, as the Heaven Sealing Immortal Edict sealed the wild world, the 2 venerated demons and the 7 ancient statues fell into different gates of life and were separated from each other. One day later, Ao Xian and Old Ancestor Poisonous Dragon reunited. However, they had lost the 7 ancient statues and had yet to find them until now. In another 6 days, the power of the Heaven Sealing Immortal Edict will be exhausted. At that time, I'll need at least 1 ancient statue in order to carry out the 3rd revolution of the ancient statue and summon the ancient passage of the ancient desolate ancient realm. I'm afraid it's impossible to find all 7 ancient statues. We have to find at least 1. It would be best if he could find the 7th ancestor's ancient statue. The 7th ancestor's blood soul had been condensed for a long time and was the strongest. Before the other 6 ancient statues were lost, their blood souls had yet to condense, so their power was too weak. But judging from the time, the other 6 ancient statues should be condensing their blood souls by now. Just as Forefather Poison Dragon was worrying about the ancient statues, his subordinate suddenly sent another battle report. The content of this battle report had nothing to do with the ancient statue. It said that the life token of the true Dragon Clan's elder, Xianjia, was shattered and he had most likely died in battle. Xianjia is dead? With 200,000 savage beasts by his side, who in the wilderness could possibly kill him? Could it be a human immortal venerable? Forget it, Xianjia's life or death is only a small matter. The most important thing now is to retrieve the ancient statue. The only fortunate thing was that the 7 rubies embedded in the compass were still shining. The 7 rubies represented the safety of the 7 ancient statues. If any of the ancient statues were destroyed, the corresponding rubies would dim. As long as the 7 ancient statues were not destroyed and were still in the wilderness, there was a high chance that they could find 1 or 2 of them within 6 days. Forefather Poison Dragon threw the battle report down and said coldly to the demon cultivator who came to report. Continue searching. If you can't find the whereabouts of the ancient statues, you don't need to come back. Yes. On a certain broken continent that was covered in flames, spirit boats were entering and leaving the place. The flames were a defensive grand formation that was personally set up by 6 combination Immortal Venerable. A day had passed since the blood sacrifice ceremony in the wilderness. 6 combination Immortal Venerable was severely injured and was currently recuperating on this broken continent. He would activate the communication Jade Slip from time to time, hoping to contact Wise Words Immortal Venerable and meet up with him. However, a day had passed and he was still unable to contact Wise Words Immortal Venerable. This is troublesome. Fellow Taoist Wise Words' whereabouts are unknown. I'm afraid it will be difficult for me to protect the cultivators of the human race to survive this calamity. From time to time, battle reports would be sent to 6 combination Immortal Venerable. Every time he received a battle report, he would know that another almighty cultivator of the human race had fallen in the calamity. Report. Fairy Luo Ling Siluo has fallen in battle. She is the 4874th life immortal cultivator to fall in this calamity. Report. Devil Lord Scarlet Moon has fallen in battle. She is the 216th crossing truth cultivator to fall in this calamity. Report. Forefather Tian Yuan has fallen in battle. This is the 6th thought-shattering forefather to fall in this calamity. Report. 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 Not a single battle report was good. All of them were bad. Occasionally, there would be battle reports of searching for Wise Words Immortal Venerable. However, those reports were all about not being able to find him. I've received reliable information. Those damned demon cultivators have already colluded with the savage beasts. During this calamity, the entire wilderness was affected by the forbidden immortal force. All the cultivators of the human race had their cultivation base suppressed. Although the cultivation base of those demon cultivators was also suppressed, they could use the blood restriction to control the savage beasts. However, the cultivation base of those savage beasts wasn't suppressed at all. With the help of the savage beasts, the demon race is almost a one-sided massacre against the human race. This is extremely detestable. 6 combination Immortal Venerable's eyes were cold. He had already become numb to the bad news from the battle reports. Suddenly, a different battle report came, which surprised him quite a bit. Report. Tablet Guardian Commander Qin Fei has something to report. On the battle service tablet, there's a senior who killed the enemy demon Xian Jia. He has been promoted to a 5th grade low-grade Golden Immortal. Upon hearing the battle report, 6 combination Immortal Venerable exclaimed softly. Xian Jia. Is it that Xian Jia who is an elder of the true dragon clan? 6 combination Immortal Venerable asked in surprise. Yes. Lai Xiu reported respectfully. 6 combination Immortal Venerable's eyes flickered. Based on what he knew, the experts of the true enlightenment realm and above of the demon race had a large number of savage beasts following them during this calamity. The higher the cultivation base, the more savage beasts would follow them. For example, Xian Jia, the thought-shattering old monster, had at least hundreds of thousands of savage beasts following him. Under such circumstances, the fact that someone could kill Xian Jia was enough to prove that the person was extraordinary. What's the name of the new low-grade Golden Immortal? 6 combination Immortal Venerable asked with slight interest. In reply to Immortal Venerable, this new Golden Immortal is the nameless senior who killed the poison dragon guards back then. Oh. It's him. 6 combination Immortal Venerable was moved as he recalled the past. Back then, he had also paid attention to that nameless cultivator. He remembered that the nameless cultivator had been shot by Patriarch Poison Dragon with the 7 Truths 7 Illusions arrow, but was not killed. What a pity. If it wasn't because of the changes in the wilderness, I would be very interested in finding this person and recruiting him for my own use. Forget it, forget it. Now that the human race in the wilderness is facing a calamity, I can't even protect myself, let alone expanding my forces. By the way, where are the 6 combat divisions under me? 6 combination Immortal Venerable suddenly asked. The reporting cultivator stuttered. In reply to Immortal Venerable, among the 6 combat divisions, Yin Hai, Mao Su, and Qin Yu have returned 2 hours ago. Si Shen and Wu Wei are also on their way back. Only Zicho Combat Division. How is Zicho Combat Division? Finish it at once. 6 Combination Immortal Venerable's face darkened. In reply to Immortal Venerable, according to Zicho Combat Division's report, they are currently fighting with an unknown savage beast in order to rescue a small group of cultivators. They have suffered heavy casualties and are unable to escape. Nonsense. They are sacrificing so many lives just to save a small group of people. When did Ting Nan and Teng Bei become so stupid? Quickly contact the two of them and order Zicho Combat Division to return immediately. Give up on rescuing that small group of cultivators, no mistakes are allowed. In reply to Immortal Venerable, something happened to Zicho Combat Division half an hour ago. We can no longer get in touch with them. What did you say? 6 Combination Immortal Venerable was enraged and smashed the jade table in front of him. After a long silence, he finally said coldly to the reporting cultivator with a gloomy face, "Forget it. The matter regarding Zicho Combat Division can no longer be salvaged. You can leave now." 6 Combination Immortal Venerable dismissed the reporting cultivator and continued to treat his injuries without saying a word. However, any cultivator accompanying him could tell that 6 Combination Immortal Venerable was in an extremely bad mood. There were 6 elite combat divisions under 6 Combination Immortal Venerable's command. They were named after the 6 combinations of the 12 earth branches. Zicho Combat Division was the most elite among the 6 combat divisions. It had a full complement of 120,000 people. Although it was not full, it still had 100,000 people. The commanders of the combat division were 2 early thought-shattering old monsters. The left commander, Teng Nan, and the right commander, Teng Bei, were both experts from the Southern Heaven Immortal world. They were twin brothers who were proficient in joint attacks. In the Southern Heaven Immortal world, they were known as the second patriarch of the Teng family. In the previous Realm War, Zicho Combat Division, under the leadership of Teng Nan and Teng Bei, specifically killed the powerful figures of the demon race. On the day of the battle, the skulls of the second-step demon experts they killed were piled up into a tower of human skulls that was hundreds of feet tall. Once the news spread, the demon cultivators of the wilderness were terrified. It was such a powerful combat division. However, at this moment, Zicho Combat Division was completely defeated by a bloody ferocious beast. In the void, more than 100,000 cultivators in rattan armor kept activating their talisman swords. With the power of the sword formation, they fought to the death without retreating. There was only one enemy. It was a strange-looking bloody ferocious beast. The ferocious beast had 2 heads and a huge body. From afar, it looked like a small cultivation planet. Its body was illusory and transparent. The aura of this ferocious beast wasn't very strong. It was only equivalent to the mid-stage of shedding void. However, with this level of cultivation, it was able to defeat the 100,000 cultivators of Zicho Combat Division. The 100,000 cultivators activated the sword formation. A huge formation diagram appeared in the void. Countless sword lights slashed down. When the sword lights hit the ferocious beast, they directly passed through the ferocious beast's body. They didn't leave any injuries. Teng Nan and Teng Bei, the 2 commanders of the combat division, were thought-shatterer cultivators. Although their cultivation levels were suppressed by the celestial seal, their spells were not to be underestimated. The 2 of them kept activating their spells to attack the ferocious beast. However, even their spells would pass through the ferocious beast's body. They couldn't cause any damage. Where did this ferocious beast come from? Why can't all our spells hurt it? Teng Nan and Teng Bei's expressions were extremely ugly. Suddenly, the ferocious beast's tail swept toward them. The 2 of them tried their best to block it, but they were still swept away by the ferocious beast's tail. They coughed up blood and retreated. The ferocious beast opened its mouth and spat out a brutal flash. The purity of the brutal flash was much higher than that of a normal ferocious beast. The black and red brutal flash continuously tore through the sky. Each of its attacks would pierce through the sword formation and take away the lives of hundreds of cultivators. As time passed, the casualties of Zichou Combat Division had already reached 30%. Those who were fighting against the ferocious beast were not only the cultivators of Zichou Combat Division but also the cultivators of Heavenly Barbarian City. Far away from them, there was a broken continent that emitted golden light. It was the continent where Heavenly Barbarian City was located. In the sky, Earth Devil and Iron Crow Daoist were constantly attacking the blood-soul ferocious beast with their spells. Both of them used to be immortal venerables. When they used their spells, they were extremely profound. However, they couldn't hurt the ferocious beast at all. Fairy Han Wu, Four-Eyed Devil Monarch, Tong Air and thousands of cultivators who were saved by Ning Fan were currently fighting against the ferocious beast. Even though there were a lot of them, none of them could hurt the ferocious beast. This scene was too strange. It was as if the ferocious beast was immune to all damage. On the broken continent, immortal concubine Zhang Yu's face was pale and bloodless. Watching the battle in front of her, she was inwardly shocked. When she was at her peak, she was once a 9-tribulation immortal emperor. However, even with her eyesight, she could not see through the origin of this ferocious beast. She did not understand why this beast was immune to all damage. Currently, because she had used the piercing golden light too much, her broken divine body had already suffered a severe backlash. Her chi was as weak as a candle in the wind. Thus, she could not participate in the battle. A few hours ago, Ning Fan left the broken continent in order to snatch back the primordial spirit of the immortal Loli. Before he left, he ordered her to use the piercing golden light to fly with the broken continent despite the backlash. Of course, immortal concubine Zhang Yu was unwilling to carry out this order. How could she bear to hurt herself for Ning Fan? Unfortunately, her body was under the tribulation restriction and she could not control it. Thus, she carried out Ning Fan's order loyally. Damn it! After using the piercing golden light for a few hours consecutively, my primordial spirit's backlash is extremely severe. I almost can't use any magic power anymore. It's all that little thief's fault for giving me such an order. Hasn't that little thief finished his business yet? Why isn't he back yet? I hope he doesn't die outside. There was only one reason why immortal concubine Zhang Yu was concerned about Ning Fan's life. There was one thing about the tribulation restriction that was very similar to the ordinary mental restriction. If Ning Fan died, she would also be implicated and die. She did not have any feelings for Ning Fan. Naturally, she would not really care about him. In this place, only Zhao Dai, Lu Yan and Fairy Han Wu would really worry about Ning Fan's safety. Uncle, where did you go? Will you be in danger? Uncle, why haven't you come back yet? That ferocious beast is really scary. No one can hurt it. Perhaps only you can hurt it and save us. Zhao Dai had an almost blind trust in Ning Fan. She was not a cultivator and did not know how to judge the level of one's cultivation realm or the strength of one's abilities. What she saw was that even the combined forces of more than 100,000 cultivators could not hurt that blood-soul ferocious beast. She stubbornly believed that as long as Ning Fan returned, he would be able to kill the ferocious beast and save her time and time again. In her eyes, Ning Fan was always omnipotent. Senior, did you go to bring back Xianxian's primordial spirit? Why aren't you back yet? If you come back and find me dead, will you shed a tear for me? Lu Yan looked at the sky blankly. In her mind, she could not help but recall the scenes when she met Ning Fan. That year, he brought her away from the 3000 Thunder Realm. Her identity was his weapon spirit. That year, she accompanied him to comprehend the Tao in the desolate land. Her identity was his Tao companion. However, that Tao companion was fake. She had already completed the harmonious spirit star plate. To Ning Fan, she was probably no longer of any use. If she dies, would Ning Fan care? Would he? She did not have the confidence to make Ning Fan shed a tear for her. Neither did she dare to hope for it. Her heart that was filled with thoughts turned into a faint sigh. Fairy Han Wu kept waving her moonlight rays to attack the vital parts of the blood-soul ferocious beast. Unfortunately, all her attacks passed through the beast's body without any exception. She could not cause any substantial damage to it. This ferocious beast was actually immune to all kinds of damage. It gradually made her feel helpless. If fellow Daoist Ning is here, he might have a way to deal with this beast. The things that he does are always unexpected. Unknowingly, Fairy Han Wu could not help but think of Ning Fan even though she knew that she could not be distracted while fighting the ferocious beast. When she thought of Ning Fan's solemn expression when he left in a hurry, her eyes could not help but be filled with worry. That worried expression was woken up by a beast roar and she came back to her senses. She bit her lips and continued to wave her moonlight rays to attack the ferocious beast. She still could not hurt the ferocious beast. No one could hurt it. The blood-soul ferocious beast would not get hurt. However, cultivators of the human race were dying continuously. The casualties were getting heavier and heavier. This battle seemed to have become a one-sided massacre by the blood-soul ferocious beast. When the number of cultivators who died was less than 60,000, the cultivators finally became timid. They no longer dared to fight the beast and wanted to retreat. At this moment, Teng Nan and Teng Bei's faces were filled with regret. If they knew that this ferocious beast was so strange, they definitely would not have been so careless to save the cultivators of Heaven Man City. In the beginning, the ferocious beast only noticed Zhao Dai, and the others. It chased after them all the way to Heaven Man City. Teng Nan and Teng Bei happened to pass by with Zichou Combat Division. When they saw that there was only one ferocious beast and its chi was only at the mid-void shedding realm, they decided to save them. Who would have thought that this ferocious beast's ability was so strange that it could be immune to all harm? In this way, the cultivators had no chance of winning against the ferocious beast. If they continue to fight, they would only increase the casualties. Retreat. This beast is too strong. If we continue to fight, we will only increase the casualties. Teng Nan gritted his teeth and transmitted his voice to Teng Bei. As soon as he heard the message, Teng Bei immediately nodded in agreement. He had been fighting with the ferocious beast for a long time and his injuries were not light. If they continue to fight, not only would Zichou Combat Division die, even he himself might die. Before the two of them could give the order to retreat, the blood-soul ferocious beast seemed to have seen through their thoughts. It sneered like a human and actually spoke human language. Hee, foreign cultivators, don't you think it's a little too late to leave now? Today, no one is allowed to leave. All of you will become my food. The blood-soul ferocious beast suddenly opened its mouth and spat out a blood-colored ball of light that was the size of an inch. As soon as the ball of light appeared, it immediately grew with the wind and directly enveloped the battlefield within a radius of 100,000 li within a blood-colored light screen. Even the broken continent where Tianman City was located was enveloped within the light screen. Some human cultivators didn't know that the blood-colored light screen had left and wanted to break through it to escape. However, once they touched the light screen, they all turned into ashes and dissipated. Not good. Don't touch this light screen, it's a barrier. Teng Nan and Teng Bei gasped. The barrier in front of them was too powerful. Even with their cultivation, they couldn't break through it and escape. The two of them immediately gave the order for all the combat divisions to attack at the same time and create an opening in the barrier. 60,000 cultivators attacked at the same time. Waves of divine abilities struck the barrier, but without exception, all the divine abilities passed through the barrier and were unable to damage it. This barrier actually didn't have a physical body. If divine abilities couldn't hit the barrier, and if magical treasures hit the barrier, they would immediately turn into ashes. If a person touched the barrier, they would die for sure. Everyone was trapped in the enchantment. No one could escape the enchantment, and no one could hurt the blood-soul fierce beast. A portion of the mortals in Tianman City knelt on the ground and kowtowed to the beast because they were afraid of death, continuously begging for their lives. When the beast heard the pleas, it only made it smile even colder and more impatient. Humph. Whoever cries, I will kill that person first. You barbarians, it is your honor to die in my hands. Why are you crying? I am Fan Lianxiu, the 6th-generation barbarian ancestor of the Boorish land. Barbarians are born to be the servants of the barbarian ancestors. When the master kills the servant has no choice but to obey. When the servant dies for the master, it is an honor. To be able to become blood food for the ancestor, all of you should smile in the underworld. Fan Lianxiu's cold and emotionless voice traveled into Tianman City. All the barbarians were stunned. The human cultivators might not know what the name Fan Lianxiu represented, but as barbarians, who didn't know who Fan Lianxiu was? The 6th-generation barbarian ancestor, Fan Lianxiu. He was known as the most benevolent barbarian ancestor in the history of the barbarians. According to the Boer Ancestral Sutra, the 6th Boer ancestor was benevolent and was a role model for all living beings. According to the Boerish Ancestor Sutra, the 6th Boerish ancestor had once encountered a starving beggar. He pitied the beggar's suffering and cut off his flesh to feed the beggar, saving him. The Barbarian Ancestral Sutra recorded that the desolate lands had once faced a calamity. It was attacked by otherworldly beasts and the 6th barbarian ancestor sacrificed his life to save the people. He died in battle for the desolate lands. According to the Boer Ancestral Sutra, the 6th Boer ancestor had made a vow to never harm a single barbarian in his life. I don't believe it. How could this beast be the 6th barbaric ancestor? The 6th barbarian ancestor died fighting for us barbarians a long time ago, and he would never bear to harm any of us. This beast is definitely not the 6th barbarian ancestor. The barbarians raised their heads in anger. They did not believe that the cold and heartless beast in front of them was the most benevolent ancestor in the history of the barbarians. They had read the Boer Ancestral Sutra from a young age and believed that everything recorded in it was true. They did not believe that the real 6th Berserker ancestor would do anything to harm the barbarians. They didn't believe it. The blood-soul beast snorted in disdain. With a sweep of its mouth, it repelled the attacks of the cultivators. Then, it activated its divine power and a blood-red light immediately appeared around it. Within the crimson light, his body swayed, and he transformed into a two-headed blood-soul elder. The elder was clearly far away from Heaven Barbarian City, but he seemed to have been born with a divine power. As long as he stood there, any barbarian who had once believed in him could see his face clearly. His appearance was no different from the statue of the 6th barbarian ancestor worshipped in the barbarian temple. In his bloodline, when he faced the barbarians, he was born with the suppressive force of a superior. The moment the suppressive force spread, all the barbarians felt a pain in their knees and knelt on the ground. In this world, only the 7th barbarian ancestor could make all the barbarians kneel down with the suppressive force of their bloodline. Countless barbarians were dumbfounded. They did not want to believe it, but they had to. The blood soul in front of them was the 6th barbarian ancestor that the barbarians had worshipped for generations. The Boer Ancestral Sutra is just a tool for us barbarian ancestors to fool the masses. It's funny that you barbarians actually believe the stories recorded in it. What a joke. I once died. I did not die to protect the wilderness, but to perform a blood sacrifice in the wilderness and to slaughter all living beings. Just this blood sacrifice of the wilderness was part of my wishes. That's why I was able to reach an agreement with the demons. Do you all know that? If I didn't say it, you might not have understood it even in death. What a bunch of pitiful ants. Fan Lianxiu sneered as he casually reaped the lives of the cultivators. The Boer Ancestral Sutra was just a tool to fool the masses and collect incense offerings. The stories recorded in it were just a scam. What they saw might not be true, and what they heard might not be false. Any cultivator with a bit of cultivation could understand that, but mortals might not be able to understand it their entire lives. Everything was just a scam. The faith in the hearts of countless barbarians completely collapsed at that moment, leaving nothing behind. Everything was just a scam. The 6th barbarian ancestor was not a kind person. Instead, he had performed a blood sacrifice in the wilderness and slaughtered all living beings. The deaths of countless barbarians were also related to the 6th barbarian ancestor. Some of the younger barbarians revealed looks of grief and indignation. They could not believe that the person who destroyed their families was the barbarian ancestor whom they had believed in for their entire lives. some of the elderly barbarian monks in Heaven Man City began to cry with sorrowful expressions. That cry was a sign of disappointment. There was nothing more sorrowful than a dead heart and the collapse of their dreams. What they had believed in for their entire lives was just a scam. Zhao Dai's pretty face was pale. She bit her lips so hard that they were bleeding, but she did not feel the pain. She had been a barbarian monk for decades and taught countless mortals to believe in the barbarian ancestor. So, it was all wrong, so, everything recorded in the Boer Ancestral Sutra was fake. So, everything she believed in was fake, it was all fake. Who was the one who came to save the barbarians when they were in trouble? It was not the barbarian ancestor. Not only did the barbarian ancestor not save the barbarians, he even treated them like pigs and dogs and killed them. From today onwards, Zhao Dai will no longer believe in any barbarian ancestor. From today onwards, I, Zhao Dai, will only believe in one person. He is more trustworthy than any other faith. Zhao Dai made a vow on the city wall as if she was making a vow. Her words contained a trace of Joss flame power. Although her voice was not loud, it was clearly heard by every barbarian. The eyes of those barbarians who had lost their faith lit up. At this moment, Ning Fan's figure appeared in front of them. Their lives were all saved by Ning Fan. Compared to the cold and heartless barbarian ancestor, it was better to believe in Ning Fan. It's just the faith of ants. It's fine if I don't want it. Fan Lianxiu's eyes were filled with disdain. His body turned into a black-red aurora and flashed in front of the group of cultivators. Every time he appeared, he would attack violently and reap the lives of hundreds of people. At this rate, all the cultivators in the barrier would die sooner or later. Are we going to die here today? Teng Nan and Teng Bei's faces were filled with despair. Fan Lianxiu's eyes became colder and more emotionless. At this moment, his blood-soul body was extremely special. In the second step, there were only 3 types of power that could hurt him. One was the power of samsara, another was the power of tribulation sense, and the last one was the Joss flame. It must not be an ordinary Joss flame. It must be the Joss flame of slaughter, which had the strongest killing intent. Other than that, no other abilities could hurt him. Even if an immortal emperor attacked him, the result would be the same if he did not use these abilities. When Fan Lianxiu was at his peak, he was a quasi-saint realm expert. Even though he had been dead for many years and only his blood soul was left, he was still not someone that could be hurt by ordinary means. Cultivation realm was not everything. Unless it was a special ability, it would not be able to hurt him. Not a single one of these ants can hurt me. No one can stop my plan to be reborn. In the past, I failed the blood sacrifice in the desolate world. My power was able to break through the desolate world and I became a tribulation spirit of the Taitsung world. After I died, I found out that everything was a lie made by the tribulation spirits of the upper world. I lied to the mortals and ants. Those damn tribulation spirits of the upper world were also lying to me. After my rebirth, I will definitely reopen the passage to the heaven wasteland world and kill my way to the upper world to take revenge on those tribulation spirits. No one can stop my plan to take revenge. Fan Lianxiu shuttled through the crowd of cultivators. He was having a great time killing the tribulation spirits when he suddenly felt a chill down his spine. A dangerous figure was approaching him from a great distance away. Before the figure arrived, his murderous intent had already locked onto him. His current blood soul was only afraid of 3 different abilities. He was afraid of the power of samsara. The murderous intent contained the power of samsara. He was afraid of the Joss flame of slaughter. The murderous intent contained the Joss flame of slaughter too. Luckily, the person's samsara force and the Joss flame of slaughter were extremely weak. Even if the murderous intent managed to hurt him, it could not hurt him too deeply. However, the person also possessed the power of the tribulation spirits of the Taitsung sect. The power of the tribulation spirits was not ordinary. It was a 6-star tribulation spirit of the Taitsung sect. It was too easy to kill Fan Lianxiu with his blood-soul body at such a level. Who is this person? Whatever I'm afraid of, he has it. It's like he's my nemesis. We can't stay here any longer. Let's go. Fan Lianxiu was incomparably arrogant just now. However, the moment he sensed the murderous intent of the person who was approaching him, his face turned pale with fright. He immediately removed the blood light barrier and turned into a ray of blood light, fleeing for his life. However, before he could get far, a horde of wild beasts that blotted out the sky and covered the earth had already arrived at this place. Each of them was extremely ferocious. In front of the horde of wild beasts, there was a cold and indifferent figure who was clad in white robes and red light. Without any unnecessary words, Ning Fan immediately dashed towards Fan Lianxiu as soon as he appeared. This Fan Lianxiu had cultivated the ominous cultivation method. After killing someone, he wanted to run away. How could there be such an easy way in this world? Chapter 900. It's Uncle. Uncle is back. Zhao Dai loosened her tightly clenched lips and shed tears of joy. Lu Yan looked at the sky in a daze. When she saw Ning Fan's figure, she immediately felt relieved. Senior is back. The long street of the heavenly barbarian city was filled with barbarians. All of them were extremely excited. When they were being chased by the sixth-generation barbaric ancestor and were on the verge of despair, Ning Fan returned. Ning Fan had returned with an army of 200,000 savage beasts. The roars of the 200,000 wild beasts were as loud as thunder. Ning Fan stepped on the space-piercing stone beneath his feet and immediately leaped up, flying straight towards Fan Lianxiu. Fan Lianxiu, who was initially extremely arrogant, actually fled in panic. This scene was witnessed by all living beings, and no one wasn't shocked. In the sky, the cultivators who were fighting against Fan Lianxiu exclaimed. Who is this ghost-masked cultivator? He actually brought 200,000 savage beasts to this place. Could he be a powerful expert of the demon race? No, he's not a demon cultivator. He's a human cultivator. I didn't expect that there would be a senior who could command savage beasts in our human race. Moreover, there are actually hundreds of thousands of savage beasts under his command. Why did that ferocious beast run away? Could it be that it's afraid of this ghost-masked senior? Exclamations of shock could be heard everywhere. Teng Nan and Teng Bei's eyes were filled with shock, but they did not say anything. They just quietly watched the scene of Ning Fan and Fan Lianxiu running away. Both of them were at the thought fragmentation realm, but they could not hurt Fan Lianxiu at all. They wondered what kind of cultivation base this person has to be to actually scare Fan Lianxiu away. Could this person be an ancient immortal venerable? No, it's obviously not. The qi that this person exudes is far from the thought fragmentation realm. Both of their eyes were filled with confusion. However, those confusion turned into shock the moment Ning Fan made his move. Freeze! Ning Fan's speed was too fast. In just a flash, a golden light pierced through the sky and appeared 1,000 zhang away from Fan Lianxiu. He pressed his index finger forward and all the void storms within 1,000 zhang were immediately frozen. The space seemed to be frozen and time seemed to have stopped. Fan Lianxiu's expression suddenly changed as he was unable to move. He was actually frozen by Ning Fan's finger. The Eastern Sky Ancestor Emperor's Heaven Sealing Technique. Where did this person come from? He actually knows this technique. Teng Nan and Teng Bei were both shocked. Any cultivator who had the slightest bit of insight and recognized the heaven sealing art would be greatly alarmed. As soon as he pointed at Fan Lianxiu, he suddenly raised his hand. The 5 rain swords were already hovering in front of him. He could tell that the blood soul technique was strange, so he didn't hold back and used his strongest technique right away. With a tap of his index finger, the 5 swords immediately drew in the will of heaven and earth, whistling out and directly slicing Fan Lianxiu's blood soul body into 6 pieces. Sword of Dao Laws. This kid's 5 swords actually have a trace of the power of Dao laws. Teng Nan and Teng Bei weren't the only ones shocked. Even Earth Demon and Iron Crow, the 2 celestial sovereigns of the past, were shocked. Ever since the two of them became Ning Fan's slaves, they could be considered to have seen quite a number of astonishing feats from him. However, when they saw the sword light of Tao laws at this moment, they were still a little shocked. After the initial shock, they felt that it was a pity. Both of them were once celestial sovereigns of the past. Even though their strength had declined, they could still use a little bit of the power of Tao laws. When they fought against Fan Lianxiu just now, both of them had also tried to use the power of Tao laws. However, they could not hurt him at all. From their point of view, even though Ning Fan's 5 rain swords were powerful, it was still not enough to hurt Fan Lianxiu. Sure enough, Fan Lianxiu's body was sliced into 6 pieces, but not a single drop of blood flowed out. A blood-red light flashed and his body was directly reconstructed in the blood light. Even the technique of Tao laws can't hurt this ferocious being. Ning Fan's eyes turned serious and he withdrew the 5 rain swords. Fan Lianxiu harumphed disdainfully and said coldly, "This kind of ability can hurt others, but it can't hurt me." Barbaric bull collapsing mountain technique. Fan Lianxiu narrowed his old eyes. He actually stopped running. He waved his hand and summoned a blood mountain and thrust it towards the sky. The blood mountain had already risen into the sky. Immediately, tens of thousands of flaming bulls rushed out from below. All of them were the shadows of barbaric bulls. Their iron hooves stepped on the sky and charged towards Ning Fan. In the beginning, he ran away as soon as he saw Ning Fan because he was afraid of the 3 types of power in Ning Fan's body. Now, he stopped running because he could tell that Ning Fan did not know his weakness. It seemed like Ning Fan did not know how to use the 3 types of power to hurt him. In that case, he only needed to kill Ning Fan before he could see through his weakness. There was no need for him to run away anymore. With Fan Lianxiu's current cultivation base, a single flaming bull was enough to kill Ren Xian. If tens of thousands of flaming bulls were to charge at him at the same time, the tremendous force would definitely be enough to easily kill Shikong, who was slightly weaker. Previously, when this ferocious being saw me, he immediately ran away. His eyes were filled with fear just now. But now, it has changed. The 5 rain swords can't hurt him. I'm afraid even if I summon the 5 sword of war and use all 10 of them at the same time, they still won't be able to hurt him. This ferocious being's ability is really strange. It can ignore the damage of Tao laws. No wonder even 100,000 cultivators couldn't take him down in the past. I wonder if I can hurt him with this ability. Ning Fan's scarlet eyes suddenly turned purple. His silver hair turned black and his white robe turned black. His ghost face turned black bit by bit. At the moment when his face turned black, he suddenly raised his finger and pointed at the 10,000 flaming bulls. Then, he uttered 2 cold and emotionless words. Sha Gu. Ever since Ning Fan returned, Fairy Han Wu's beautiful eyes had always been fixed on him. She was the one who was the closest to Ning Fan among the group of women. The moment Ning Fan turned into black robes, she clearly saw his eyes turn as cold as ice. That kind of coldness made her feel as if he had completely turned into a stranger. It was so unfamiliar that she did not dare to recognize him. If she did not see Ning Fan turn from white to black with her own eyes, she would almost think that the black-robed Ning Fan was another person. Mounz and old ancestor Jin Hua arrived late with a group of cultivators who were in distress. As soon as they arrived, they saw the scene of Ning Fan turning into black robes. Both of them were filled with fear. Old ancestor Jin Hua, in particular, had the most fear on his face. He had been injured by the black-robed Ning Fan before. Thus, he knew very well how terrifying Ning Fan's ability was in this state. With just a finger, he could even erase a cultivator's cultivation base. This is the returning ruin finger. The returning ruin finger of the Fu Li clan. How can this little thief display this technique? Immortal concubine Zhang Yu did not say a word, but her heart was filled with astonishment. The Fu Li clan had long been destroyed in the ancient times. In this world, there were very few cultivators who were qualified to know the name of the Fu Li clan. As for those who could recognize the returning ruin finger, there were even fewer of them. As for those who could display the returning ruin finger, they should have all died, the Fuli clan should have all died. Could it be that this little thief possesses the bloodline of the Fuli clan? Otherwise, it would be impossible for him to display the returning ruin finger. In the dictionary of the Fuli clan, the two words shagu meant returning ruin. The ability that Ning Fan was displaying now was also what immortal concubine Zhang Yu thought of as the returning ruin finger. Ning Fan had comprehended this technique from the black-robed elderly man. His understanding of this technique was extremely shallow. Even so, the power of this technique should not be underestimated. The returning ruin finger was to return everything in the world to nothingness. The power of this technique was the opposite of the great Tao. Suddenly, billowing black mist appeared in front of the herd of 10,000 bulls. When the black mist rolled towards the herd of bulls, the flames on their bodies were immediately extinguished. In one breath, the flames were extinguished. In 3 breaths, all the barbaric bulls wailed miserably. Their bodies began to rot. In 6 breaths, all the barbaric bulls' skin and flesh had decayed and fell off, leaving only their skeletons. In 10 breaths, the herd of bulls including their skeletons turned into ashes and vanished in the void space. In 10 breaths, the technique was broken. 10 breaths was also the limit of Ning Fan's current returning ruin finger. He pointed his index finger at Fan Lianxiu again. Countless black mist rolled towards him. Being engulfed by the black mist, Fan Lianxiu's cultivation base actually showed signs of falling. In 1 breath, his cultivation base fell for 1,000 years. In 10 breaths, he fell for 10,000 years. His blood-soul body was being destroyed bit by bit in the black mist. In just 10 breaths, his cultivation base immediately recovered to its original state. His body also recovered. Hiss! What a strange ability. Fortunately, this young man didn't comprehend this technique. Otherwise, he would certainly be able to injure my blood-soul body. I didn't expect that this young man has 4 types of power that can injure me instead of 3. No, judging from this young man's strangeness, there might be a 5th and a 6th type. I might not be able to kill this young man even if I continue to fight him. It's better for me to run away. Fan Lianxiu's expression changed again. With a sway of his body, he turned into a ray of blood-red light and ran away. Ning Fan's eyes flashed. He chased after Fan Lianxiu while his mind was filled with thoughts. When this ferocious creature first saw me, it immediately ran away. It must be because I have something that he is deeply afraid of. Later on, he stopped running because he saw that I didn't reveal any means that he was afraid of. He knew that I didn't see through the weakness of his blood-soul body. That's why he wanted to kill me before I realized it. With my current understanding of the returning void finger, I can't injure this ferocious creature, but I must have some means that this ferocious creature is extremely afraid of. With Ning Fan's intelligence, he immediately deduced this point from Fan Lianxiu's various actions. The 5 rain swords wasn't just his strongest ability. Among the 5 swords, there was also the separation and reunion sword, which was a 12 nirvana acquired magical treasure. If this technique couldn't injure Fan Lianxiu, it meant that ordinary divine abilities and magical treasures wouldn't be able to hurt him. Among the many means that I have, which one is the one that Fan Lianxiu is most afraid of? Suddenly, Ning Fan's mind recalled a verse of the barbarian ancestor scripture that he often heard when he was transforming into a mortal and comprehending the truth. Barbarian is the ancestor of nature, the great sect of myriad domains. Barbarian is born in the mortal world and dies in the tribulation. Everything can't be clung to. Perhaps, this person is afraid of my tribulation blood, or perhaps, he's afraid of my Tao of obsession. Ning Fan's figure flashed once again and appeared in front of Fan Lianxiu, blocking his path. This time, it wasn't the tribulation sense technique but the Tao sense technique. As soon as he pointed his finger, the west wind appeared. Immediately, the strange scene of thousands of leaves fluttering in the air appeared between heaven and earth. Humph! This brat is really stupid. He actually hasn't discovered what I'm afraid of. It's just a Tao sense technique. Why would I be afraid of it? Fan Lianxiu sneered. Without the slightest fear of the thousands of leaves in front of him, he directly dashed forward, attempting to break the seal of the technique. However, as soon as he entered the range of the technique, the west wind enveloped him. Fan Lianxiu's expression immediately changed and cold sweat flowed all over his body. The west wind technique was a Tao sense technique that Ning Fan had created. It contained his Tao sense of obsession. Even Fan Lianxiu himself did not expect that under the corrosion of the Tao sense of obsession, his blood-soul body would crumble along with the shadows of the thousands of leaves, turning into ashes bit by bit. The fifth type. This brat actually has a fifth type of force that could injure me. It's obsession. Damn it. This man is actually a obsession cultivator. It's actually a obsession cultivator that only 1 out of 1,000,000 people in the Jia Ling clan possesses. Damn it. Damn it. The destructive power of obsession to savage beasts is much more terrifying than the blood of the beast. Ancient statue, protect me. The west wind was like the Tao. Almost in the blink of an eye, it was going to kill Fan Lianxiu on the spot. At the moment of certain death, Fan Lianxiu shouted loudly and summoned an ancient statue from the depths of the void. That ancient statue was one of the 7 ancient statues that Ao Xian and old ancestor Poisonous Dragon used during the blood sacrifice ceremony in the desolate land. As soon as the ancient statue appeared, Fan Lianxiu's blood-soul body directly entered the ancient statue and possessed it. All of a sudden, an aura force that was comparable to an ancient immortal venerable was awakening on the ancient statue. With the power of the west wind technique, it could no longer hurt Fan Lianxiu who was inside the ancient statue. Once the blood soul enters the ancient statue, it can't be separated anymore. Initially, I planned to devour enough flesh and blood to improve my blood soul's cultivation base before merging with the ancient statue. Now, it seems like I have no choice but to merge with the ancient statue in advance. However, even if I successfully resurrect after 6 days, my strength will certainly be much weaker than before. It's all this brat's fault. He forced me to hide in the ancient statue. This brat deserves to die. Billions of barbarian souls appear. The ancient statue was like an incomparably huge stone puppet. Step by step, it slowly and firmly walked towards Ning Fan in the void. Fan Lianxiu was not going to run anymore. He wanted him to pay the price. With a point of his finger, a huge pool of blood appeared in the air. Bloody souls flew out from the pool of blood. Each of these souls belonged to the barbarians who had died unjustly in the blood sacrifice ceremony in the wildlands countless years ago. As soon as those souls appeared, each of them glared at Fan Lianxiu with unforgettable hatred. It was unknown how many souls there were. 1 billion, 10 billion, 100 billion or even more, uncountable. In the past, the 6th barbarian ancestor Fan Lianxiu disdained to sacrifice all the living beings in the desolate land in exchange for a chance to cultivate the tribulation blood and become the tribulation spirit of Taizong. The barbarians did not enter samsara after they died. Before their souls dissipated, they were all taken away by Fan Lianxiu and refined into the blood pool. Each of the dead barbarians had an unforgettable hatred towards Fan Lianxiu. That hatred turned into endless joss flames of slaughter and accumulated in the blood pool for countless years. It was obviously the joss flames of slaughter that were used to kill Fan Lianxiu. However, for some reason, Fan Lianxiu could use them instead. This simply defied common sense. I don't need your faith. I only need hatred. The more you hate me, the better. My Tao is hatred. In this world, only cultivators who cultivate the Tao of hatred can use the joss flames of slaughter at will. And I am one of them. Blood Bao Spirit, appear. Barbaric slaughter arrow, condense. The ancient statue sneered and grabbed forward with its stone hand. Immediately, a young archer appeared between heaven and earth. The young archer's eyes were cold and emotionless. With a shake of his body, he turned into a blood bow and fell into the ancient statue's hand. The ancient statue grabbed at the blood pool with its huge hand. The endless joss flames of slaughter immediately turned into a blood arrow and fell into the ancient statue's hand. His left hand drew the bow and his right hand released the arrow. As soon as the bowstring was released, the entire world seemed to be on the verge of collapsing. He wanted to use this arrow to kill Ning Fan and eliminate the hatred in his heart. Now that his blood soul had possessed the ancient statue, his strength was close to that of an ancient immortal venerable. With this Joss Flames of Slaughter arrow, he could kill any cultivator below the immortal venerable realm. This was an attack from an ancient immortal venerable. He firmly believed that no one in this world could withstand it. He recklessly collected the hatred of the people and ignored their anger. He did not need their faith. In the blood pool, the remnant souls of the barbarians who had been dead for many years could not bear to look at Ning Fan. They were unwilling to accept this. They hated Fan Lianxiu and their hatred had turned into the Joss Flames of Slaughter. They only hoped that one day, someone would take away the Joss Flames of Slaughter and kill Fan Lianxiu. However, what made them sad was that even the Joss Flames of Slaughter that were born from their hatred had become a tool that Fan Lianxiu used to display his abilities. Is this the sorrow of the weak? At the moment when the ancient statue drew the bow and knocked the arrow, countless living beings in this world instantly felt a sense of impending doom. That arrow was clearly aimed at Ning Fan, but its attack range included all the living beings in this world. The higher the cultivation base of a person, the stronger the sense of danger they felt. They would die. They would die. They would die. Mounzi and old ancestor Jin Hua were filled with remorse and hatred. They had never thought that the outcome of following Ning Fan to this place was to be killed by an arrow from a peerless ferocious creature. If they had known this earlier, they would certainly not have followed Ning Fan to this place. It was already too late for them to escape now. Both Earth Devil and Taoist Iron Crow wore unwilling expressions. The reason why they lowered their status and became Ning Fan's slaves was to save their own lives. How could they be willing to die? However, the destructive power of the ancient statue's arrow was too strong. Perhaps only the two of them could withstand it with their immortal venerables' cultivation bases when they were at their peak. Now, if they are hit by the arrow, they would certainly die. Immortal concubine Zhang Yu was so anxious that she almost cried. She was not afraid of the arrow. If she is hit by it, she might be the only one in this place who would not die. When she was at her peak, she was a 9 tribulation immortal emperor after all. No matter how weak her broken spirit was, it would still be very difficult to kill her. Even if she is hit by the arrow, she would at most suffer more serious injuries. Her life would not be in danger. However, she was afraid that Ning Fan would be shot to death. She had been struck by Ning Fan's tribulation restriction, right? If Ning Fan dies, the tribulation restriction would kill her as well, right? The only thing that could kill her in this place was that damn tribulation restriction, right? I'm going all out. Even if I have to use the last of my broken spirit's power, I must protect this little thief's life. Immortal concubine Zhang Yu gritted her teeth. Without saying a word, she wanted to fly out and protect Ning Fan with her life. Unfortunately, before she could do anything, a giggling little loli appeared in a flash. Silver lightning crackled around her body and blocked Ning Fan's path. She was the primordial spirit of immortal loli who ran out of the lightning-capturing banner after eating and drinking to her heart's content. Currently, the golden color of immortal loli's primordial spirit had completely disappeared. No one could tell that it was the primordial spirit of an immortal emperor. Unless she was willing to. After eating and drinking to her heart's content in the lightning-capturing banner, immortal loli still had not recovered her memories nor completed the evolution of her lightning body. However, her chi had already skyrocketed to the early thought fragmentation realm. Even though she was just at the early thought fragmentation realm, her aura made her fearless even when facing the current ancient statue. Father, don't be afraid. Xian will protect you. No one is allowed to hurt my father. Chapter 901. The ancient statue held a blood bow in his hand. The slaughter blood arrow on the bowstring was glaring, and the arrow was burning with a bloody fire. As soon as the arrow left the bowstring, the entire world was torn apart bit by bit. It was almost split into two under the power of this arrow. When the arrow approached him, Ning Fan seemed to have an illusion. It was as if he could sense the undying hatred of the billions of barbarian souls in the blood pool. This arrow was condensed from Joss flames of slaughter, drawn with a blood bow, and shot out with the full strength of an ancient statue. Its might was so formidable that it was sufficient to annihilate any living being beneath the immortal Exalt realm. We can't block it. However, we can't retreat. Ning Fan was clad in black robes. His eyes were always cold and emotionless. It was as if nothing could affect him once he turned into black robes, not even the arrow. Behind him, there were tens of thousands of human cultivators, as well as the creatures of heavenly barbarian city. If he retreated, this arrow would immediately kill everyone. I can't retreat. The enemy's strength was close to that of an ancient celestial venerable. Although he was already a powerhouse after cultivating for so long, there was still a huge gap between him and the celestial venerable level. Comparing the two, the opponent was like a huge tree, and he was like an ant under the tree. Wanting to shake the tree with the strength of an ant was difficult. But even an ant would have the wrath of an ant. Moreover, it wasn't that this arrow didn't have any weaknesses. Its power was all concentrated on the Joss flames of slaughter, and its weakness was also the Joss flames of slaughter. At the moment when the blood slaughter arrow was about to hit him, his innate ghost face was slightly trembling with excitement. That kind of excitement was like a hungry wolf that had seen its prey. That kind of excitement was like the innate ghost face, which was born to restrain the killing Joss flames. Ning Fan's eyes narrowed slightly. When he felt the trembling of the innate ghost mask, he suddenly had a strange thought. It wanted to rush towards the blood arrow, grab it, crush it, and devour it. Without waiting for Ning Fan to understand the origin of this feeling, a lightning suddenly flew out from the storage pouch. It was the immortal Loli who came out from the lightning capturing banner. The celestial Loli here only had her primordial spirit. The primordial spirit's power transformed her body, but she still had a short and cute appearance. That adorable face of hers was still smiling foolishly at first, but when she saw that the ancient statue was audacious enough to shoot an arrow at Ning Fan, she was instantly enraged. Who was Ning Fan? That was her father. This ancient statue was really bold, actually daring to shoot her father with an arrow. Too abominable. Father, don't be afraid. Xian Xian will protect you. No one is allowed to hurt my father. Once again, she stood in front of Ning Fan. Her small hands seemed to be forming hand seals randomly, but they immediately activated the lightning power and formed a divine ability. The arrow was extremely fast, but Immortal Loli's technique was even faster. In a split second, an incomparably huge silver lightning diagram appeared in the air. Cold Chi soared into the sky from the center of the lightning diagram. A lightning war chariot emitting surging cold mist suddenly appeared. Once the lightning chariot appeared, millions of frost lightning runes began to revolve around it. The lightning cannons on the carriage surged with power. With a loud boom, a dark lightning cannon shot out, piercing through the sky. There were 9 lightning runes on the lightning cannon. This thunder chariot was the Dark Thunder Chariot summoned by the Extreme Thunder Palace's secret technique. In the past, the immortal Loli could only summon a level 8 lightning chariot. Using a level 9 lightning chariot was too much for her. However, now that her strength had increased significantly, it was much easier for her to use it. An 8th grade lightning chariot could kill most of the old monsters at the void-shedding realm. A 9th grade lightning chariot's destructive power was infinitely close to that of an immortal venerable. There were not many old monsters at the thought fragmentation realm who could withstand the destructive power of this cannon. Wherever the lightning cannon shot passed through, heaven and earth were immediately frozen. The blood arrow was originally coming at an extremely fast speed. However, as soon as it was hit by the lightning cannon, its entire body began to freeze bit by bit. The slaughter Joss flames inside the arrow also slowed down. 40% of its power was directly frozen. The first cannon shot failed to stop the blood arrow, but it managed to weaken its power by 40%. Immortal Loli raised her small hand. Rumbling lightning power formed a divine ability. The Dark Thunder chariot did not stop at all and fired the second cannon shot. After the second cannon shot passed through the arrow, the power of the blood arrow was reduced by 40% again, leaving only 20%. At this critical moment, the third cannon shot arrived. The third cannon shot directly shattered the blood arrow, turning it into specks of slaughter joss flames that filled the air and gradually dissipated. After 3 consecutive shots, the immortal Loli directly blocked the blood arrow that was close to the power of an immortal prime. This scene shocked countless people. Countless exclamations came from the crowd of cultivators. When the immortal Loli's figure landed in everyone's eyes, she immediately became a senior expert. Early thought shattering. There's no mistaking it. This senior has the energy of the early thought demolishing stage. Strange. Under the suppression of the forbidden immortal force, there's actually someone who can maintain the cultivation of the thought-fragmenting realm. That's the Dark Thunder War Chariot, the secret art of the Eastern Extreme Thunder Palace. This senior is undoubtedly a cultivator of the Extreme Thunder Palace. The might of 3 cannons blocked the attack of an immortal venerate. This senior's Lightning War Chariot is definitely a Grade 9 War Chariot. The might of a 9th grade War Chariot is truly terrifying. It is said that there are only a few 9th grade war chariots in the entire Supreme Thunder Palace. Even Mounz, Patriarch Jinhua, Ting Nan, and Ting Bei felt their scalps tingle after witnessing the might of the Class 9 war chariot with their own eyes. The most inconceivable thing was the way Immortal Loli addressed Ning Fan. Daddy, an old monster who could activate a 9th grade lightning war chariot and block the attack of an immortal venerate actually called Ning Fan Daddy. What kind of person could have such a violent daughter? Could it be that Ning Fan is an ancient immortal venerate? Fellow Taoist Xiao Jian. Could he be an ancient immortal venerate? Mounz and old ancestor Jinhua exchanged glances with each other. Both of their hearts were beating wildly. The more they thought about it, the more they felt that it was likely to be true. Immortal concubine Zhang Yu's beautiful eyes flickered with astonishment, dispelling the thought of saving Ning Fan. With Immortal Loli's help, Ning Fan would not be in much danger. Fan Lianxiu was inwardly shocked when the blood arrow was broken. He really did not dare to underestimate the might of a 9th grade lightning war chariot. His heart began to race again. He thought to himself that Ning Fan was indeed his nemesis. Before he merged with the ancient statue, he was not a match for Ning Fan. Thus, he could only run away. Now that he had merged with the ancient statue, he had gained an extremely violent daughter who could even block the attack of an immortal venerate. In that case, even if he continues to stay here and fight Ning Fan, it would be difficult for him to kill Ning Fan. Troublesome. This is really troublesome. Even though I have merged with the ancient statue, the power of the ancient statue is not inexhaustible. It seems like it won't be easy to kill this brat. Forget it. Let's leave this place for now. Once we find the ancient statues and blood souls of the other barbaric ancestors, we can join forces and seek revenge on this brat. Fan Lianxiu made up his mind. He immediately controlled the ancient statue and made a grabbing motion. Countless amounts of joss flames of slaughter were drawn out from the blood pool. He condensed them into arrows and shot them out. Then, he stepped on the sky and left with huge strides, bringing the blood pool with him. Every step he took covered an immeasurable distance. Humph! I won't let you run away. Immortal Loli activated the Dark Lightning War Chariot again and fired 3 shots consecutively, destroying the second blood arrow. With a tap of her feet, she directly stood on the chariot. She drove the chariot with a slight smile on her face and chased after the ancient statue. Streaks of lightning cannon fire blocked the path of retreat of the ancient statue. Fan Lianxiu was so angry that he laughed instead and stopped running away. Like father, like daughter. Ning Fan pursued me relentlessly and now his daughter also dares to pursue me relentlessly. Does she really think that I, the 6th generation barbaric ancestor, am a herbivore? Since they didn't want him to leave, he wouldn't escape. He wanted to stay here and fight it out with the immortal Loli. He wanted to see if his ancient stone statue was stronger, or if the immortal Loli's war chariot was stronger. Aren't you going to run away? If you aren't going to run away, I'm going to use my ultimate technique. Hee hee. Unseal, 10th grade lightning chariot. Immortal Loli's voice was very soft. However, as soon as her voice fell, the scene of tens of thousands of lightning rumbling appeared between heaven and earth. Her voice, amidst the rumbling thunder, was transmitted into everyone's ears exceptionally clearly. She stood on the lightning chariot and the lightning diagram covered the entire void. The direction where the lightning struck was actually moved according to her will. It was as if she had become the Lord of Lightning in this place. Her small face was filled with pain. She gritted her teeth. More and more runes appeared on the dark lightning chariot. The 10th lightning mark appeared beside the 9 lightning marks on the lightning cannon. However, summoning the 10th grade lightning chariot was obviously too much for Immortal Loli. Only half of the 10th lightning mark had appeared and it could not be condensed anymore. As for Immortal Loli, her face was already slightly pale. What? This lady can actually summon a 10th grade chariot. This can't be real, right? It's said that a 10th grade chariot can kill an immortal venerable and severely injure an immortal king with a single blast. Isn't it said that only the past extreme lightning palace lords could condense a 10th grade lightning chariot? How can this lady do it? No. It's not a real 10th grade lightning chariot. However, its power is incomparable to any 9th grade lightning chariot. The crowd of cultivators exclaimed in surprise. Amidst the exclamation, the Immortal Loli suddenly turned her head and smiled sweetly at Ning Fan. Even though it was a pity that she could not summon a real 10th grade lightning chariot in one go, it should be enough to deal with the ancient statue. Father, Xian will protect you well because you are my father. Immortal Loli endured the pain in her chest and the incomparably huge burden to activate the dark lightning chariot. Once again, she fired the cannon at the ancient statue. Even though the current dark lightning chariot was not a real 10th grade chariot, its power was enough to severely injure an ancient immortal venerable whose cultivation base was slightly weaker. Just as Fan Lianxiu was about to retaliate against Immortal Loli, his expression suddenly changed. Without saying a word, he activated the body of the ancient statue and turned around to flee. He fled extremely quickly, but the lightning cannon's attack was even faster. It even triggered the response of the lightning in heaven and earth. Fan Lianxiu felt like he was hallucinating. Every single lightning in this world was the cannon fire of Immortal Loli's lightning cannon. This world was filled with lightning. There was no way for him to avoid it. This ancient statue's strength was originally close to that of an ancient immortal venerable. However, the moment the lightning cannon struck it, its stone body was immediately frozen. What was the so-called dark lightning? It was the coldest lightning in the world. It could freeze and kill everything. Fan Lianxiu's ancient stone body shattered inch by inch in the ice, revealing the bloody soul underneath. The bloody soul glared at Immortal Loli with hatred. It actually ignored the power of the lightning cannon and fled. His ancient stone body could not withstand a single attack from Immortal Loli. However, his bloody soul was not afraid of any of her lightning abilities. Countless cultivators sucked in a cold breath at this moment. They could not imagine that an ancient statue whose strength was close to that of an ancient immortal venerable would be destroyed by the lightning cannon of the war chariot. Why is there an old man with a bloody soul hiding inside the stone statue? The war chariot that was close to the 10th grade actually failed to kill this old man. On the other hand, Immortal Loli was a little surprised that Fan Lianxiu could survive the attack of the lightning cannon. She wanted to risk her life to attack Fan Lianxiu again. However, she suddenly realized that a golden light flashed beside her and Ning Fan's figure appeared. Thank you for standing in front of me when I was in trouble. Ning Fan patted the head of Immortal Loli's primordial spirit. His smile was very warm. His black robes had already faded and turned back into white robes with silver hair. Every time Immortal Loli stood in front of him to protect him, it touched his heart and made him value his relationship with her even more. Even if that relationship was just a fictitious father-daughter relationship, you're tired. Let me handle the rest of the matters. Immortal Loli could not see Ning Fan's smile because of the ghost mask. However, she could see the smile in his eyes. It was extremely gentle, as if it could melt away all the coldness in the world. It was her first time seeing such a gentle look in Ning Fan's eyes. She could not help but nod her head obediently and giggled. All right. Let father go and catch that old man Shui Hun. Xian Xian just wanted to rest. Wait for me to come back. Ning Fan's body flashed and turned into a golden rainbow, chasing after Fan Lianxiu. Fan Lianxiu, who was running tiredly, suddenly realized that Ning Fan was chasing after him. He immediately complained. Since his stone body was destroyed, he had almost no chance of winning against Ning Fan now. He carried the blood pond and continued to run while holding the blood bow spirit in his hand. Seeing that Ning Fan was getting closer and closer to him, Fan Lianxiu's eyes flashed with ruthlessness. He was like a lone wolf that was going to fight for his life. He suddenly stopped and turned around. Even though my stone body is destroyed, the power of this arrow is still not something you can withstand. Turn the hatred of all living beings into my arrows. Kill! 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 Fan Lianxiu's eyes were filled with madness. He waved his hand and drew out a large amount of joss flames of slaughter from the blood pond. Instantly, he shouted the word, kill, 3 times. Each time he shouted a word, he would shoot out a slaughter blood arrow. 3 slaughter blood arrows pierced through the sky and went straight for Ning Fan. Since Fan Lianxiu had lost his stone body, the power of the slaughter blood arrows was not as strong as before. Even so, the 3 arrows still had the power to kill a peak Shikong realm expert. They were not to be underestimated. Facing the 3 arrows, Ning Fan neither dodged nor evaded them. His eyes were deep and emotionless. The innate ghost mask kept emitting excitement. That excitement gradually infected Ning Fan, as if it had fused with him. To Ning Fan, the slaughter blood arrows were like a delicacy. Although he had refined the innate ghost mask in the past, he was still unable to control it perfectly due to his limited cultivation base. But at this moment, the innate ghost mask was willing to be perfectly controlled by Ning Fan just to get the delicacy that was about to enter his mouth. It was as if there was a voice that kept bewitching Ning Fan to devour the joss flames of slaughter in front of him. It was as if there was a voice that kept urging him. Devour, devour, devour. Gradually, Ning Fan's body was filled with an unknown confidence. This confidence made him take a step forward instead of retreating in the face of the 3 slaughter blood arrows. Closer, closer, closer. The 3 slaughter blood arrows pierced through the sky. Ning Fan borrowed the power of the ghost mask and shouted a word. Bang! This word contained the power of the innate ghost mask. This word seemed to have a natural suppressive effect on all the joss flames of slaughter in the world. It was as if all the killings in the world had to listen to Ning Fan's command. It was because he was the owner of the innate ghost mask. It was because he was the new young emperor of the Slaughter Palace in the last 6 million years. He was the master of all the killings in the world. As soon as the word fell, it was as if his words were the law. The 3 blood arrows that were flying towards him were actually shattered just like that. How is this possible? Fan Lianxiu was shocked. He attacked again and shot 7 arrows at Ning Fan. As the 7 arrows approached, Ning Fan's expression became even colder. He suddenly patted the top of his head and a primordial spirit flew out. That primordial spirit was Ning Fan's primordial spirit. His primordial spirit looked at the 7 slaughter blood arrows with a cold and emotionless face. It used the power of the ghost mask to directly open its mouth and swallow the 7 arrows. Impossible. Even I can't ignore the damage of the joss flames of slaughter. How could this kid swallow the slaughter blood arrows without suffering any damage? A feeling of shock instantly shrouded Fan Lianxiu's heart like a shadow. However, in the next moment, all the shock in Fan Lianxiu's heart froze. Ning Fan's primordial spirit returned to its original position and pointed his finger downwards. With just a finger, the west wind blew. The west wind was like the Tao and the death of a cultivator was like a leaf. Ning Fan's expression was cold. He looked at Fan Lianxiu like a decayed leaf. For a moment, Fan Lianxiu could not tell whether he was the dignified sixth-generation barbarian ancestor or an inconspicuous withered leaf. I think you are like a leaf. When the wind blows, the leaf is extinguished. As soon as Ning Fan uttered those words, the shadows of the leaves in the void turned into ashes and dissipated. Fan Lianxiu's bloody soul body also crumbled at the same time and vanished into thin air. What was left in this place was a blood pool that contained countless barbarian remnant souls and a young archer with ferocious eyes. The young archer's eyes were cold and emotionless. When he saw that Ning Fan had killed Fan Lianxiu, he directly flew towards Ning Fan. This archer was refined by Fan Lianxiu sacrificing countless lives when he was alive. It was extremely ferocious. No one could subdue it other than Fan Lianxiu. Ning Fan's eyes turned cold. Just as he was about to kill this archer, an extremely excited voice suddenly came from the profound Yin world. Master! The little Bao sensed that there is an archer with a high grade in the outside world. It just so happens that it can devour it. Master, quickly release the little Bao and devour that archer's spirit. As long as Master allows me to devour that archer's spirit, I will be absolutely loyal to Master from today onwards. I will never have any thoughts of betrayal. I am willing to guarantee this with my Bao. The excited voice came from the archer's spirit of the candle Bao. At this moment, the archer's spirit of the candle Bao was sealed in the profound Yin world by Ning Fan. Even though it was separated by the profound Yin world, the archer's spirit could still sense that there was a great tonic approaching from the outside world. Master! I beg you to let me devour that archer's spirit. That is the legendary, inferior innate archer spirit. At the same time, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon who was far away suddenly became furious. He was holding the compass in his hand. Out of the 7 rubies that were inlaid on it, the 6th one was broken, damn it. The ancient statue of the 6th-generation barbarian ancestor has been destroyed. Chapter 902. Looking at the broken ruby on the compass, old ancestor Poisonous Dragon's eyes became darker and darker. On the other hand, Venerate Ao Xian said calmly, fellow Taoist Poisonous Dragon, you don't have to worry about this. One ancient statue has been destroyed and there are still 6 more. As long as we can find an ancient statue within 6 days, there's still a chance to salvage the situation of awakening the ancient passage. Fellow Taoist Ao Xian is right. I was too emotional. Old ancestor Poisonous Dragon took a deep breath and calmed himself down. He kept the compass and closed his eyes to continue recuperating. Inferior innate level Bao spirit, the words of the candle Bao's spirit made Ning Fan's eyes flicker. He did not stop using his abilities. He pointed his index finger forward and the power of heaven and earth immediately whistled out, forming a seal that froze the young Bao spirit who was charging at him in the sky. His 5 fingers pressed forward again and a powerful force spread out. At this moment, Ning Fan had activated the secret word of force to its limit. The young Bao spirit could not move at all. He groaned in pain and gradually, more and more seals appeared in his body. The ferocity in his eyes was suppressed bit by bit. He let out an unwilling roar and turned into a blood-red iron Bao. Ning Fan's expression was still cold. He bent his palm and waved, keeping the blood Bao in his hand. He glanced around and nodded without saying anything. Sensing that the young Bao spirit was subdued by Ning Fan, the sealed spirit of the candle Bao in the profound Yin world became even more excited. Master! Did you catch the innate level Bao spirit that time? Quickly give it to me to devour. This is a great tonic, really a great tonic. Noisy. Hearing that the Bao spirit was still making noise, Ning Fan frowned and let out a cold snort. He activated the seal in his body. All of a sudden, the Bao spirit let out a series of miserable cries and could no longer speak. There were many types of weapon spirits. Swords had sword spirits and axes had axe spirits. This Bao spirit was naturally one of the types of weapon spirits. Among the weapon spirits, there were strong and weak ones. Most of them were divided into 5 grades: mortal grade, immortal grade, acquired grade, inferior innate grade and innate grade. Upon closer inspection, this blood bow spirit was indeed an inferior innate level bow spirit. However, Ning Fan had other matters to attend to at the moment and did not have the time to deal with it. After keeping the seal, Ning Fan's eyes swept across the surroundings and looked at the blood pool not far away. Ning Fan chased after Fan Lianxiu all the way. They had already traveled quite a distance. Other than him, there was only this massive blood pool left in the void space. The blood pool contained too many remnant souls of the barbarians. There were trillions of them, and it was impossible to count them all. They were all packed together. All of these remnant souls were the mortals whom Fan Lianxiu had slaughtered before. At first, all of them were filled with resentment. However, after Ning Fan killed Fan Lianxiu, all of them kowtowed to him 3 times and 9 times. They cried and wailed. Their expressions were filled with gratitude. They were babbling about something, and judging from their expressions, they seemed to be expressing their gratitude. However, they could only make ghostly sounds and could not speak in human language. Once Fan Lianxiu died, the blood pool began to crumble bit by bit. The remnant souls of the barbarians in the blood pool dissipated bit by bit with the wind. They had died long ago in the ancient times. Their remnant souls should not have existed to this day. If the barbarians died, they would no longer be able to enter the cycle of reincarnation because the heavenly Tao of reincarnation in the wilderness had been destroyed in ancient times. Looking at the hundreds of millions of barbarian souls that were dispersing, Ning Fan was powerless to stop them. His eyes were filled with mixed emotions. He activated the Fuli spiritual wheel, trying to use its power to contain these remnant souls. However, he realized that it was impossible. The Fuli spiritual will could only contain people who were unyielding even in death. These barbarians were not killed in battle, nor were they unyielding. Therefore, it was impossible to contain them. They were a group of people who were abandoned by the samsara. After they died, they would vanish into thin air. They only had this life and no afterlife. Ning Fan remained silent. He took out a jar of wine from his storage pouch. He opened the mud seal and sprinkled the wine into the blood pool, as a way to send off these barbarians who were abandoned by the samsara. His eyes gradually became blank. At this moment, he seemed to have seen the fate of the barbarians. That fate was like a line. There was a beginning and an end, but there was no turning back. At the same time, he seemed to have understood the fate of the mortals in the 4 heavens and 9 worlds. Their fate was like a circle. They were connected by life and death. Regardless of whether they were alive or dead, they would always be in the circle, repeating the scenes of life and death. That circle was called samsara. The barbarians have lost the right to enter samsara, but what is samsara? At the moment when the last barbarian's soul dissipated, Ning Fan closed his eyes and stopped thinking. When he opened his eyes again, there was no longer any expression on his face. The blood pool collapsed and the remnant souls dispersed. The only thing that was left was the joss flames of slaughter that had accumulated in the blood pool. The amount of the joss flames was incomparably huge. As the blood pool collapsed, the joss flames spread in all directions like a sea of mist. These joss flames of slaughter were produced by the dead barbarian's hatred towards the barbarian ancestor. To the innate ghost mask, the accumulation of countless years seemed to have become the most delicious delicacy. Ning Fan pondered for a moment and finally decided to collect these joss flames of slaughter. He took out a blue and white porcelain vase and pointed the mouth of the vase at the sea of joss flames. He chanted the word, collect, and the billowing sea of mist immediately flowed into the vase. This porcelain vase was a first Nirvana heaven immortal treasure. It was unknown which battle it was obtained from. At first, the blue and white porcelain vase was collecting the joss flames smoothly. However, when it had collected less than 1% of the entire sea of joss flames, it suddenly split into 2 with a loud bang. All the joss flames that had been collected flowed back into the sea of mist. This blue and white porcelain vase could not withstand too much joss flames of slaughter. That was why it was destroyed. A first Nirvana heaven immortal treasure was the most commonly used magical treasure by early true crossing realm cultivators. However, it could not even collect 1% of the joss flames in this place. Ning Fan's eyes flickered. He took out a third Nirvana Heaven Immortal treasure. A third Nirvana Heaven Immortal treasure was considered as an extremely powerful magical treasure to any true Crossing Realm cultivator. The grade of this red copper incense burner was not low. However, it could only collect 1/20th of the Joss flames of the Sea of Mist. Then, it exploded and the Joss flames scattered in all directions. There are too many Joss flames of slaughter in this place. Ordinary magical treasures can't withstand this level of Joss flames at all. However, I wonder how powerful a magical treasure is needed to collect all the Joss flames of slaughter in this place. Ning Fan turned his hand and took out a fifth Nirvana Heaven Devil banner. He waved it at the Joss flames of slaughter and the surging Joss flames of slaughter was immediately absorbed into the devil banner. A fifth Nirvana Heaven Immortal treasure was considered as a powerful magical treasure to any cultivator in the empty shedding realm. The 4 minor swords of Ning Fan's 5 rain swords was only at the 5th Nirvana Heaven Immortal treasure. However, the flag could only absorb 1/5 of the Joss flames of slaughter before it couldn't bear the power of the Joss flames and exploded. There were still a few 6th Nirvana and 7th Nirvana acquired immortal treasures in his storage pouch. Just as he was considering whether he should use these treasures to experiment, he suddenly thought of something. With a flip of his hand, he took out a terrifyingly heavy purple gourd from the profound Een world. This purple gourd was an innate realm gourd. It could be used as a material to refine innate magic treasures. When Ning Fan had just arrived in Eastern Heaven, he obtained it by cutting the divine chests on a trading planet called Shaoza Star. In the past, due to his low cultivation base, he could not even move the gourd. Today, he could already move the gourd slightly with his divine ability, but he didn't have the ability to refine it into a Xiantian magical treasure. Normally, only immortal emperors were qualified to refine innate magic treasures. Naturally, Ning Fan was unable to do so. The interior of the purple gourd was hollow and was naturally suitable for storing things. At this moment, it was taken out by Ning Fan as a vessel to contain the Joss flames of slaughter. With the power of the innate gourd, it should be able to withstand the power of the Joss flames. Ning Fan lifted the gourd and pointed the mouth of the gourd at the misty sea of Joss flames. Then, he muttered the word, absorb. Countless streams of Joss flames gushed into the mouth of the gourd. After a few breaths' time, all the Joss flames were absorbed into the gourd, leaving not a single trace behind. The purple gourd did not show any signs of damage even after absorbing such a massive amount of Joss flames. Seeing this, Ning Fan nodded and kept the gourd back into the profound Een world. There was no point in staying here any longer. Thus, he turned around and returned to where he came from. When Ning Fan returned, be it the group of cultivators from Zichao's war division or the 200,000 wild beasts that he brought back, all of them had already landed outside the Heavenly Man City. As soon as they saw Ning Fan returning with the baleful qi from killing Fan Lianxiu, the group of cultivators cupped their fists towards the sky. Senior, thank you for killing that ferocious creature and saving our lives. The 10,000 cultivators shouted at the same time. Their voices naturally resounded through the clouds. The 200,000 wild beasts that were prostrating on the ground raised their heads and let out gentle beastly roars towards the sky, as if they were welcoming Ning Fan's return. There were also some human houses that were empty. Normally, they would be arrogant and proud. However, the way they looked at Ning Fan was like how juniors would look at their seniors. Even Mounzi, old ancestor Jin Hua, Teng Nan, Teng Bei, and the other human cultivators did not dare to be negligent. All of them cupped their fists towards the sky. If someone did not know what was going on and saw this scene, they would certainly think that they were welcoming a certain immortal venerable of the human race. This kind of extravagance was just too grand. As soon as Ning Fan returned, he directly landed on the city wall of the Heavenly Man City. As soon as he landed, the immortal Loli who was jumping around like a monkey giggled sweetly and jumped into Ning Fan's arms. She wrapped her arms around Ning Fan's neck like an octopus and took in Ning Fan's scent. She felt incomparably relieved. Father, have you already killed old man Xuehun? Ning Fan nodded his head and stroked the silver hair of the little Loli in his arms lovingly. At this moment, the immortal Loli's primordial spirit had already returned to her body. Her complexion was rosy and her small face was radiant. A piece of flesh on her shoulder had been scratched off. However, under Ray Lee's healing, the injury had completely healed. To her, having her primordial spirit captured by the lightning-capturing banner was not a tribulation. Instead, it was more like a fortuitous encounter. The sea of lightning in the lightning-capturing banner had already been devoured by her. The lightning-capturing banner had also been destroyed. As for her chi, it was no longer any weaker than an early thought fragmentation realm cultivator. After putting down the joyful immortal Loli, Ning Fan's spirit sense swept across the broken continent. His expression became slightly solemn. Even though he had killed Fan Lianxiu, there were still tens of thousands of cultivators who died in his hands during this battle. Zichao's war division originally had 100,000 guards. Now, there were less than 60,000 of them. Even the human cultivators whom Ning Fan had saved previously had also died in Fan Lianxiu's hands. Ning Fan gently closed his eyes. Once the great chaos began, human lives would become worthless. Only the strong could survive in this great calamity. Teng Nan, Teng Bei, and many old monsters of the human race came to greet Ning Fan one after another, thanking him for saving their lives. If it wasn't for Ning Fan's timely arrival, all of them would probably have died in Fan Lianxiu's hands this time. In front of these old monsters of the human race, Ning Fan used the identity of Zhao Jian. To Zhao Dai, Fairy Han Wu, Earth Devil, and the others who were familiar with him, Ning Fan secretly transmitted his voice to remind them not to reveal his true name in front of outsiders. Then, he briefly told them about how he saved the immortal Loli's primordial spirit. During this trip, Ning Fan brought back 200,000 savage beasts, Mounz, old ancestor Jin Hua and other helpers. After devouring the sea of lightning in the lightning-capturing banner, immortal Loli's strength had increased tremendously. Now, she could be considered as a great help. With these helpers, Ning Fan was quite confident that he could rescue venerated Miao Yan in one go. There's also the Zichou War Division. They can also be a great help to rescue venerated Miao Yan. Ning Fan's gaze swept across Teng Nan and Teng Bei. When their eyes met, the two of them immediately smiled. After the desolate world was destroyed, the 6 war divisions under the command of 6 Unity Immortal venerated Miao Yan dispersed. At this moment, there were already 5 war divisions that had contacted 6 Unity Immortal venerated Miao Yan, and they were heading towards the place where the 6 Unity Immortal venerated Miao Yan was. However, the Zichou War Division was the only exception. Fan Lianxiu destroyed the Sound Jade Tablet they used to communicate with the main forces of the human race. As a result, the Zichou War Division had no idea where the 6 combos Immortal venerated Miao Yan was at all. Fortunately, Teng Nan and Teng Bei learned from Mounz that Ning Fan's group was currently going to look for venerated Miao Yan. As for the world where venerated Miao Yan was at, it seemed like it was not far away from the world of the Gate of Life. There were only a few worlds between them. In their opinion, as long as they travel with Ning Fan's group, they would be able to find venerated Miao Yan in no time. Hence, under the leadership of Teng Nan and Teng Bei, the entire Zichou War Division directly stayed on Ning Fan's broken continent and followed him. The helpers around Ning Fan increased once again. The group of cultivators only hoped that they could find venerated Miao Yan easily during this trip. However, they did not know that venerated Miao Yan was currently trapped in the world of the Gate of Death. Ning Fan had concealed this point and did not mention it. Once he tells them about it, there would probably be many cultivators who were afraid of the dangers of the Gate of Death. They would immediately leave and give up on finding venerated Miao Yan. Before they arrive at their destination, Ning Fan did not intend to tell the group of cultivators the truth. Let's just say that he was purposely tricking his teammates. With Ning Fan here, immortal concubine Zhang Yu naturally did not need to use the piercing golden light anymore. The void-piercing stone fell in front of the group of beasts. The beasts guarded it carefully. As Ning Fan pointed at it from afar, black mist surged out from the void-piercing stone and enveloped the broken continent. Ning Fan then activated the piercing golden light, causing the entire broken continent to immediately shoot out like an arrow that was shot from the bow. Its speed was even faster than before. As it flew at full speed, it was getting closer and closer to the world of the Gate of Death where venerated Miao Yen was at. Venerated Miao Yen, even though I have never met you before, you have helped me once. Today, I will return the favor. 1 hour passed by. Ning Fan had passed through 4 worlds of the Gate of Life. The further he went, the more Mounz felt like he had been tricked. What entered his sight were pieces of broken continents that were floating in the void. They were in a state of desolation and there was no sign of any living beings. This was the place where venerated Miao Yen was at. However, when they arrived at this place, they did not see venerated Miao Yen. Fellow Taoist Xiao, didn't you say that venerated Miao Yen is here? Why can't I see him? Could it be that venerated Miao Yen has already left this place? Mounz's heart was beating rapidly but his face showed an apologetic smile. There were a lot of people who felt doubtful. However, Ning Fan did not intend to solve their doubts one by one. He drove the broken continent and flew to the front of one of the giant scarlet doors. He activated his rain technique and carefully sensed the interior of the door. With his eyesight, he could tell that it was a gate of death at first glance but the others could not. When he sensed that the danger inside the door was much lower than what he had expected, he smiled faintly and activated his ability. Then, he drove the entire broken continent and flew into the door. This is the world of the Gate of Death. Fellow Taoist Xiao, why did you bring us into the world of the Gate of Death? Senior Xiao, you must have entered the wrong door. Leave this world at once. The world of the Gate of Death. It's actually the world of the Gate of Death. This place is extremely dangerous. We must leave now. Immediately, countless cultivators on the broken continent exclaimed in surprise. Ning Fan's voice spread out in a timely manner. Everyone, please calm down. Look carefully. Venerated Miao Yen is right here. This was Ning Fan's first time entering the world of the Gate of Death. The world of the Gate of Death was not a void. Everywhere that entered his sight was endless sand. There was a huge desert floating in the middle of this world. The sand at the nearest part of the desert was golden in color. If one goes further into the desert, the sand would turn black. If one goes further into the desert, the sand would turn blood red. In this desert, there was a hidden killing formation every few steps. If cultivators below the thought fragmentation realm enter the Gate of Death and trigger the killing formation, they would certainly die. Fortunately, the fearsome formation at the entrance of this world had already been destroyed by venerated Miao Yen. If one does not go deep into this world, there would not be any danger. This was also the reason why Ning Fan dared to drive the broken continent into this world. Ning Fan's eyes turned solemn as he looked at the blood sand region at the center of the desert. Within the blood sand region, he could vaguely see 8 stone towers. The top of each stone tower was pasted with an immortal talisman drawn with a red brush. There was only one word on the talisman. Seal. Each of the 8 stone towers occupied a direction and surrounded the 10,000 li region according to the position of the 8 trigrams. It actually gave off an extremely dangerous feeling. Ning Fan could vaguely see something through the endless sand. In the deepest part of the blood sand region, there was the figure of a lady who was fighting a bitter battle with hundreds of giants. She was venerated Miao Yen. Her enemies were stone giants that were more than 100,000 zhang tall. All of them were formed by the power of formations. She was trapped at the center of the 8 stone towers. If she was at her peak, she would probably be able to break the 8 stone towers and fight her way out. Unfortunately, she could not break out of the encirclement of the 8 stone towers at the moment unless there was a fellow Taoist whose cultivation base was close to the immortal venerable realm who was willing to risk his life to help her. Currently, venerated Miao Yan's face was as pale as a piece of paper. Her beautiful face was filled with bitterness. It had been a day since she asked Ning Fan for help. However, Ning Fan did not come to save her in the end. This made her feel a little self-deprecating and disappointed. That fellow Taoist still doesn't plan to save me after all. Could it be that I'm really going to die in this place? Venerated Miao Yen let out a faint sigh. She was already at the end of her rope. She was only holding on with her willpower while waiting for help. At this moment, when she thought that the other party might not come to save her at all, her heart sank again and again. Her willpower also crumbled bit by bit. However, just as she was about to lose all hope, a broken continent suddenly flew into her ears from the distant void. Then, a man's voice came from the broken continent. In an instant, it went into her ears and went into her heart. That voice was obviously cold, but there was a hint of concern for her. After being stunned for a moment, she immediately smiled. She actually felt touched. That mysterious fellow Taoist did not abandon her. He actually came to save her despite the dangers of this place. Most cultivators were selfish. This person's voice was cold and indifferent. Obviously, he was a cold-hearted person. However, he was still willing to save her. Why, who could that person be? Give me 10 breaths of time. I will certainly save you in 10 breaths of time. Chapter 903. 10 breaths was not an arrogant promise that Ning Fan made. Instead, it was a guarantee that he made after some deliberation. He had comprehended the Eastern Sky Ancestor Emperor's secret, power, character and could see through the flow of the formation. The ferocious formation before them used sand as a formation that was compatible with the earth element. It was divided into 3 formations: blood sand, black muslin, and yellow sand. The yellow sand formation was the weakest, while the blood sand formation was the strongest. The source of the formation's power was the 8 stone pagodas in the blood sand formation. Within the 3-layered array, momentum flowed like the ebb and flow of the tide. Every 10 breaths, the momentum of the array would be at its weakest, and it was also the best time to break the array. The only thing that made Ning Fan fearful was the scarlet word, seal, on the 8 stone pagodas. That seal seemed to contain a power that came from ancient times. It was as if everything in this world would be sealed by that power. Under the power of the seal, the entrance to the gate of death was gradually sealed. It became a place where one could only enter and not leave. Some cultivators tried to use their divine abilities to fly out of the death gate, but they found that they couldn't. Many old monsters gradually realized that unless they destroyed the formation here, no one would be able to leave. As Ning Fan's voice spread out, many human cultivators spread out their spirit sense and probed into the depths of the fearsome formation. No one could believe that venerable wisdom words was trapped in the death gate. Unfortunately, many human experts recognized Venerable Miao Yen's aura and could confirm that the woman trapped in the formation was Miao Yen. What? Venerable wisdom words is actually trapped in this ominous formation. This isn't good, this isn't good. How powerful is this ominous formation that can even trap venerable wise words? It's too difficult for us to destroy this ominous formation, but I've already entered this place. If I don't destroy the ominous formation, I won't be able to leave. I can only brace myself and continue. Speaking of which, if we can destroy this ominous formation, not only can we protect ourselves, but we can also save venerable wise words. It can be considered as a great contribution. The sounds of discussion rose everywhere. As soon as Ning Fan gave the order, the crowd of cultivators instantly fell silent. Now that we're trapped in the realm of the death gate, none of us will be able to leave if we don't destroy this ominous formation. If you want to escape from this place, then attack together with me. Destroy the formation and save venerable wisdom words. As soon as Ning Fan gave the order, his voice immediately resounded across the vast sky, reaching the ears of every cultivator on the broken continent. He leaped into the air with the army of 200,000 savage beasts following behind him. They charged toward the fearsome yellow sand formation with an indomitable aura, as though nothing could stop their footsteps. His eyes were filled with burning battle intent. The force of the battle of yin and yang was fully unleashed at this moment, causing all the battle intent between the heavens and earth to form a connection with him. Any cultivator who heard his words would inexplicably feel a surge of courage in their hearts, and it was as if they had received a great encouragement. Their will to fight rose sharply, and when they looked at the dangerous formation again, they actually didn't feel afraid anymore. Ning Fan's words kept echoing in the ears of the cultivators. His voice was like hypnotizing, bewitching, enlightening. Their gazes gradually became blank, but soon after, they revealed unswerving determination and fearless expressions. Be it the cultivators who were in trouble on the Devil Essence Arc, the members of Zichao's combat division or the cultivators whom Ning Fan had saved previously, none of them could resist the influence of Ning Fan's battle intent as long as their cultivation base was lower than the shedding void realm. All of them soared into the sky and followed Ning Fan closely, dashing toward the yellow sand grand formation. We are willing to follow behind Senior Zhao and destroy the fearsome formation to save Venerable Wisdom Words and escape with our lives. If they want to live, they must destroy the fearsome formation together. The shouts of the cultivators resounded through the clouds. Their voices were filled with overwhelming battle intent. Their auras were all indomitable. This was the power of the battle of yin and yang. It could weaken the battle intent of others and also inspire the hearts of the cultivators, increasing their courage and making their blood boil. Gradually, even some shedding void realm old monsters were inspired by Ning Fan and rushed out to join the formation. As for the four-eyed devil monarch, Fairy Han Wu and the others who were already familiar with Ning Fan, they had already rushed out. The one who rushed at the front was the smiling immortal Loli. The one who rushed at the back was immortal concubine Zhang Yu, who was mumbling unwillingly. Even Lu Yen, who had a low cultivation base, also rushed out and followed closely behind Ning Fan. Other than Zhao Dai, and the barbarians of Heaven Barbarian City who could not fly in the sky, almost all the cultivators flew out after being encouraged by Ning Fan. Mounzi, old ancestor Jin Hua, Teng Nan and Teng Bei looked at each other and sucked in a cold breath. All four of them were Broken Thought's old monsters. They could vaguely tell that Ning Fan had used some tricks to encourage the cultivators to attack. That kind of trick was too powerful. It involved the Tao law, which was beyond their understanding. The way out has already been sealed. Since things have come to this, there's nothing we can do. Let's also take action. The only way out is to destroy the fearsome formation. Mounzi let out a long sigh and flew into the sky together with the other Broken Thought's old monsters, joining the army of destroying the formation. Inwardly, however, he was feeling nervous. He was the first human Broken Thought's old monster who met Ning Fan. Along the way, he had been doubting the authenticity of Ning Fan's information. He was afraid that he would be tricked by Ning Fan. Now that he was tricked by Ning Fan into a dead end, he could only complain inwardly. However, there was nothing he could do. He could only brace himself and follow Ning Fan. 1 breath. 2 breaths. 3 breaths. The yellow sand grand formation was already 1,000 zhang away from them. Ning Fan pressed his 5 fingers forward. Immediately, a rainstorm poured down from heaven and earth. Under his control, the rainwater condensed into a giant palm and slammed down on the yellow sand grand formation. He was not the only one who attacked. All the wild beasts and cultivators who were close to the yellow sand grand formation launched their attacks at the yellow sand grand formation. Rays of light of different colors landed on the yellow sand grand formation. Immediately, the desert was riddled with thousands of holes. At the 4th breath, it collapsed. The first of the 3 layers of fearsome formations, the yellow sand grand formation, was broken. Seeing that the first layer of the fearsome formation was broken, the crowd of cultivators immediately cheered. Their confidence in following Ning Fan to destroy the fearsome formation became stronger. Tens of thousands of divine abilities paved the way. Ning Fan led the army and rushed forward. His eyes were filled with unstoppable faith. On the 5th breath, they were close to the range of the black sand grand formation. On the 6th breath, hundreds of thousands of divine abilities penetrated through the formation. On the 7th breath, the black sand grand formation was broken. In front of them, the most powerful red sand grand formation was finally revealed. 8 strange stone towers that towered into the sky appeared in front of the crowd of cultivators. Even venerated Miao Yen would find it hard to destroy the 8 stone towers from the inside out. However, it was not difficult to destroy them from the outside. The key was to find the right opportunity. At the 8th breath, Ning Fan did not attack. At the 9th breath, Ning Fan summoned the 10 swords of rain and war. At the 10th breath, Ning Fan suddenly dashed out, directly dashing towards the most dilapidated stone tower among the 8 stone towers. That was the 5th stone tower. It had already been damaged by venerated Miao Yan's repeated attacks. At this moment, it was the weakest moment of the Red Sand Grand Formation. At this moment, Ning Fan gave an order. The divine abilities of the crowd of cultivators immediately attacked the stone tower that he was attacking. Tens of thousands of divine abilities converged into a ray of dazzling divine light. Within that ray of divine light, Ning Fan used his 10 swords to open the way. Like a falling meteor, he directly crashed into the 5th stone tower. Venerated Miao Yan, who was fighting against the stone giant, suddenly turned her head and looked at the 5th stone tower. What she saw was the scene of the 5th stone tower collapsing from the outside to the inside under the attacks of tens of thousands of divine abilities. The 8 stone towers were connected to each other. If one of them was destroyed, all of them would be destroyed. Ning Fan only destroyed one of the stone towers, but the other 7 stone towers all collapsed at the same time. The countless stone giants that were attacking venerated Miao Yan also let out a miserable cry and disappeared altogether. The Red Sand Grand Formation was broken. Venerated Miao Yan had broken free. She turned her head to look. At the 10th breath, she saw a silver-haired man with a ghostly face rushing towards her with tens of thousands of divine abilities. That man's eyes were so cold and indifferent. She could not see any trace of emotion in his eyes. It was as if destroying the fearsome formation of the Gate of Death to save her was just a trivial matter that should be taken for granted. Even though it was obviously a cold and emotionless gaze, it caused a ripple in venerated Miao Yan's heart which had been calm for many years. Venerated Miao Yan stared blankly at Ning Fan, who was rushing towards her. She did not shift her gaze away. When she was at her most desperate moment, this man disregarded the danger and came to save her. Thank you, a bright and beautiful smile suddenly appeared on her pale and weak face. She had been holding on all the way until now. She was already on the verge of exhaustion and she was only holding on with her willpower. Now that she was out of danger, she already felt a deep sense of fatigue before she could even see clearly who the person who saved her was. Her vision turned black and she directly fainted, falling from the sky. She was very sleepy. She could not open her eyes, she was very tired. She could not muster up any strength at all. In a daze, venerated Miao Yan vaguely felt that she had fallen into the arms of a man. What she smelled was the scent of the man. That scent carried the smell of blood that could not be dispelled. Before he saved her, this man must have been tainted by too many killings. Ning Fan's expression became slightly strange. He caught venerated Miao Yan, who was falling from the sky, and held her in his arms. This woman was obviously covered in blood, but her body was giving off a faint fragrance. That fragrance was a little sweet. It was the fragrance of the green apple grass. Even though Ning Fan was holding a warm and fragrant jade in his arms, he could not bring himself to have any other thoughts. After all, he was holding an immortal venerated Miao Yan whose cultivation base was still intact. She actually fainted. I think she must have exhausted all of her strength to hold on until now. Ning Fan sighed with emotion. If he had come a little later, perhaps venerated Miao Yan would have really died in this ominous formation. Stepping on a ray of light, Ning Fan carried venerated Miao Yan and flew back to the broken continent. This scene made many cultivators who were following Ning Fan widen their eyes. They were speechless. What did they just see? The dignified venerated Miao Yan was actually carried back by Ning Fan. Her head was dizzy and her sea of consciousness was aching faintly. She wanted to open her eyes but she could not. After sleeping for an unknown period of time, venerated Miao Yan suddenly felt a pair of hands moving around her body as if someone was taking off her clothes. She could feel that her clothes were being stripped off one by one. She could feel a chill on her chest. Even her bra was being taken off. Who is it? Who is taking off my clothes? Could it be that fellow Taoist who saved me from danger? Venerated Miao Yen was both embarrassed and angry. She wanted to open her eyes to take a look, but she could not do so. Suddenly, she felt a cold sensation on her body. She heard the sound of water beside her ears. It seemed like someone had put her into the water. Then, she felt a pair of hands moving around her body as if it was helping her to scrub her body. Who is helping me to bathe? Could it be him? Ning Fan's figure that was rushing towards her appeared in venerated Miao Yan's mind. Her face turned even redder. She could feel that the hands were stroking her back, which was as smooth as satin from time to time. At other times, they were stroking her plump and soft chest. She felt an inexplicable sense of irritation and anger towards that person's boldness and frivolity. After an unknown period of time, venerated Miao Yen finally regained a trace of strength and opened her eyes. She saw herself sitting in a wooden basin. The petals of the green apple grass were floating on the surface of the water. Beside her, a pair of delicate and small hands were helping her to scrub her body. It was not Ning Fan's hands but the hands of a woman. Tong Er? Why are you the one helping me to scrub my body? I thought it was. Only then did venerated Miao Yen see clearly that the one who had been helping her to bathe was not Ning Fan, who was taking advantage of her as she imagined, but her maidservant, Tong Er. She heaved a sigh of relief. Inwardly, she thought that her imagination was running wild. Her question had stunned Tong Er. She was venerated Miao Yan's maidservant. Naturally, she should be the one helping venerated Miao Yen bathe. If it's not her, who else could it be? How long have I been unconscious? Venerated Miao Yen spread her spirit sense and asked Tong Er at the same time. In reply to Master has been unconscious for 3 whole days, 3 days. In other words, 4 whole days have passed since the blood sacrifice ceremony. Damn it! I've been unconscious for too long. Venerated Miao Yen frowned and asked Tong Er many more questions, such as the whereabouts of the cultivator who had saved her. After a series of questions, venerated Miao Yan's expression gradually changed. Only then did she know that the person who had saved her was called Zhao Jian. Even Tong Er was saved by Zhao Jian. Zhao Jian, is it? If it wasn't for this fellow Taoist who saved me, I would most likely be a dead man now. This is a great favor that I can't forget. Venerated Miao Yen muttered to herself. Suddenly, venerated Miao Yan's beautiful eyes widened as if she had sensed something. She casually pulled a bath towel and wrapped it around her body. With a flash, she appeared in front of the window and looked at the sky of Heavenly Man City in disbelief. In the sky, there were actually 2 ancient statues that were approaching her little by little. Those 2 ancient statues had actually locked onto her chi and were searching for her all the way here. 3 days had passed since venerated Miao Yen was rescued. For 3 whole days, venerated Miao Yen was still unconscious. Under Ning Fan's control, the broken continent had already flown out of the gate of death. However, there was no destination for it to move forward. When venerated Miao Yen was unconscious, Ning Fan had also searched through her storage pouch. He automatically ignored the various undergarments in the pouch. He just wanted to find if there was any communication item that could help him contact 6 Unity immortal venerated beings. Unfortunately, Ning Fan did not find what he needed. The broken continent was flying aimlessly in each of the Gate of Life. The people who were controlling the continent were Mounz, Old Ancestor Jin Hua, and the other 2 human cultivators. Of course, the 4 of them did not have the same level of divine ability as the piercing golden light. However, with their combined strength and the power of the space-penetrating stone, they could still make the broken continent fly slowly. Since venerated Miao Yen had yet to wake up, Ning Fan waited bitterly for no result. Thus, he went into the profound Yin world 3 days ago and began to deal with some miscellaneous matters. Naturally, it was to further increase his power to protect himself during the great calamity of the savage wilderness. The first thing he needed to deal with was the inferior innate realm Bao spirit. Secondly, he needed to deal with the massive amount of Joss flames of slaughter. Time returned to 3 days ago. In the profound Yin world, Ning Fan sat in a lotus position in his cave residence in the Western world. 2 longbows were placed in front of him. One of them was a longbow with a dragon horn. It was the form of the candle bow spirit. The other one was a blood-red iron bow. It was the inferior innate realm bow spirit that Ning Fan had obtained from Fan Lianxiu. At this moment, the blood-red iron bow was constantly emitting evil qi. It was trying to break free from the seal while locking its killing intent on Ning Fan. As for the longbow with a dragon horn, it was constantly trying to flatter Ning Fan. Its purpose of flattering Ning Fan was none other than to devour the other blood bow spirit. Master, do you know how much Xiao Gong respects you in his heart? Other than the previous master, Xiao Gong has never respected anyone else. No, compared to you, Little Gong's previous master is practically worthless. Master, please do me a favor and let me devour that innate realm bow spirit. Master, how can you bear to see me keep begging you and being so lonely? The noisy voice of the candle bow spirit echoed in Ning Fan's ears. Ning Fan ignored the candle bow spirit. His eyes moved back and forth between the longbow with a dragon horn and the blood-red longbow. His brows were slightly furrowed from time to time as if he was struggling to make a decision. There were 5 grades of weapon spirits: mortal grade, immortal grade, acquired grade, inferior innate grade and innate grade. In the 4 heavens and 9 worlds, the weapon spirits of most of the magic treasures in the hands of cultivators were only at the mortal grade. Only a small number of second-step-old monsters were qualified to possess an immortal grade weapon spirit. Acquired grade weapon spirits were extremely rare. Usually, only thought fragmentation realm old monsters could possess a acquired grade weapon spirit. A inferior innate weapon spirit was almost as rare as an innate magical treasure. Basically, only immortal emperors were qualified to possess such a high-grade weapon spirit. As for an innate weapon spirit, Ning Fan had only heard about it in ancient books. He had never heard of any powerful cultivators in the 4 heavens who possessed an innate weapon spirit. The rarity of an innate weapon spirit was far beyond that of an innate magical treasure. Not even an immortal emperor was qualified to control a weapon spirit of that level. The 5 sword spirits in Ning Fan's sword pouch were only at the mortal grade when he first met them. Although Ning Fan bestowed them with 5 immortal swords and nurtured them together, gradually raising their grade to the immortal grade, it was still a long time before they could advance to the acquired grade. The difficulty in raising the grade of a weapon spirit could be seen from this. The function of a weapon spirit was to increase the power of a magical treasure. If Ning Fan had a 12 Nirvana Hotian Bao type magical treasure and added a sub-Xiantian treasure spirit into the Bao, the power of the magical treasure would be able to surpass the limits of the Hotian realm and compete with a true Xiantian magical treasure. Weapon spirits of the same type could devour each other to increase their grade. The Blood Bao spirit was an inferior innate grade. The Candle Bao spirit was also an inferior innate grade. If the Candle Bao spirit could devour the Blood Bao spirit, even if it couldn't advance to the innate realm in one step, it could still greatly increase its power. Similarly, if the Blood Bao spirit devoured the Candle Bao spirit, it would have the same effect. The thing that Ning Fan couldn't decide was which Bao spirit to keep and devour the other Bao spirit. The Blood Bao spirit was ferocious and uncontrollable, the Candle Bao spirit was noisy and annoying, and often had the intention to betray him. If Ning Fan had a 3rd obedient Bao spirit, he would definitely feed the 2 inferior innate Bao spirits in front of him, Blood Bao. Let me ask you, if I give you a chance to devour this dragon horn Bao, are you willing to submit to me? Ning Fan pointed at the Blood Bao and slightly unlocked the seal on it. The Blood Bao immediately turned into a blood-red youth. The youth's eyes were cold and emotionless. He didn't answer Ning Fan's question and didn't even bother to look at the Candle Bao spirit. As soon as he revealed his human form, he immediately revealed a cruel smile, revealing his fangs and tried to bite Ning Fan. Ning Fan shook his head and pointed at the youth, causing him to let out a muffled groan and turn back into a bao. This youth only submitted to Fan Lianxiu alone. He really had a backbone. Unfortunately, he couldn't be used by Ning Fan. In that case, there was no room for him to leave. The Blood Bao spirit did not respond to Ning Fan's words, but the Candlebow spirit did. When the Candlebow spirit heard that Ning Fan actually had the intention to keep the blood bow and sacrifice himself, its body trembled uncontrollably. Half of it was because of anger and the other half was because of fear. Ning Fan was actually willing to use it to feed the blood bow. How could he even think of such a wicked idea? Master! You can't have this idea. Little Bao has been following you for tens of years. How can you feed Little Bao to a Little Bao spirit that has just come to you? You are liking the new and hating the old. Master, at least Little Bao has taught you the reverse spirit technique. Even if it doesn't have any merits, it still has its hard work. Why you? How can you treat me like this? Seeing Ning Fan's unmoved expression, the Candlebow spirit's heart was filled with fear. It was thinking of a way to change Ning Fan's decision. No matter what, it did not want to be eaten by other Bao spirits. The blood bow is useless. I can only keep the Candlebow. Ning Fan shook his head. He bent his finger and touched the Candlebow, slightly undoing the seal on it. The Candlebow spirit shook its body and immediately turned into an extremely wretched hunchbacked old man. Candlebow. Let me ask you. If I give you the chance to devour the blood bow, how will you repay me? What benefits can it bring me? As soon as the Candlebow spirit heard this question, the hunchbacked old man immediately knelt on the ground with a thud and cried tears of joy. Ning Fan asking this question meant that he still had a chance to live. To him, this was simply great news. Master. This little one is much more useful than that silly bow. I can bring you many more benefits. The amount of Joss flames of slaughter that Master kept in the purple gourd is huge. This little one has already sensed it. This little one can help you refine those Joss flames of slaughter into Joss flame arrows. These aren't ordinary Joss flame arrows but the 7-colored incense flame arrows that my previous master taught me. With the grade of my Bao spirit, the success rate of refining the 6-colored incense flame arrows is almost 100%. It won't be difficult for me to kill an early thought fragmentation realm expert with one arrow. Master, do you know that the success rate of refining the 7-colored incense flame arrows is also 10%? Once the 7-colored incense flame arrows are fired, even an ancient immortal venerable would be severely injured. If Master is willing to let this little one devour the blood bow, this little one has the confidence to increase the success rate to 20%. At the end, the hunchbacked old man wiped his tears and said disdainfully while pointing at the blood bow. An ordinary inferior innate Bao spirit like this can at most refine an Joss flame arrow that can kill a void being. It definitely won't be as powerful as this little one. Ning Fan's expression changed as he recalled the scene when he fought with Fan Lianxiu. When Fan Lianxiu had the body of an ancient statue, the power of the Joss flame arrows he shot out had the power of an immortal venerable. However, once he lost the body of an ancient statue and lost the power of the ancient statue, the Joss flame arrows would only have the power to kill a void being. What was powerful was not the Joss flame arrows condensed by the blood Bao spirit but Fan Lianxiu. The power of the 6-colored incense flame arrow that the Candlebow spirit mentioned was already above the blood Bao incense flame arrow. If the Candlebow spirit could really refine the so-called 7-colored incense flame arrow and severely injure an ancient immortal venerable with one arrow, Ning Fan might be tempted by it. However, the authenticity of the Candlebow spirit's words still needed to be verified. First, refine a 6-colored incense flame arrow for me to see. I'll use this arrow to prove whether what you said is true or not. Let's wash up and sleep. Chapter 904. The refinement of the 6-colored incense flame arrow was just a test to see if Candlebow's words were true. Ning Fan bent his palm and summoned the purple gourd to him. He then pointed at it and the gourd immediately spun and flew towards the old man. The speed of the flight was extremely slow, and as it gradually approached, it gave the old man a feeling of pressure that was as heavy as a mountain. The old man stretched out his hand to catch the gourd, but as soon as he did so, a heavy pressure came from his palm. That kind of heaviness was beyond his ability to bear. With a loud bang, his entire body was crushed and turned into specks of phosphorescent light. The gourd fell on the ground of the cave with a loud bang. The entire mountain began to tremble. The phosphorescent light condensed again and the old man reappeared. When he looked at the purple gourd again, he was slightly shocked. He naturally knew that the gourd was an innate spiritual item, but he did not expect it to be so heavy. This heaviness came from the innate purple chi in the gourd. The heavier it was, the more powerful the innate purple chi it contained. Master, this gourd of yours is incredible. If it is refined into an innate magical treasure, it probably won't be an ordinary item. This gourd has yet to condense into the shape of a magical treasure. Little Bao, on the other hand, has a way to gradually condense it into the shape of a bao, gourd bao. If I have such an innate gourd bao, hee, and so on. The old man's eyes darted back and forth. From time to time, he would let out a few wretched laughs. His eyes gradually became fiery. He was sealed by Ning Fan and could not escape. He could not break the seal with his current strength. As time passed, the seal gradually penetrated deep into his spirit body and became deeper. Without external help, he firmly believed that he would not have any hope of breaking the seal in his lifetime. However, if he could nurture an innate realm gourd bao, even if it was only the prototype of a magical treasure, he was quite confident that he could break the seal with the power of the bao. As long as this fiend gives this gourd to me to nurture, I will need at most 1,000 years to nurture this gourd into the shape of a bao. At that time, it won't be difficult for me to break the seal with the power of this bao. I can escape from this fiend's clutches. I must think of a way to get this gourd from this fiend. This is related to this old man's escape plan. Oh gourd, my happiness for the rest of my life depends on you. When he thought of the day when he could regain his freedom, the old man with the candle bao smiled even more wretchedly. His entire face looked like a blooming chrysanthemum. Zhu Gong's words caused Ning Fan's eyes to flicker. He seemed to be tempted. The first step of refining connate magical treasures was to let the materials absorb the power of heaven and earth and the essence of the sun and the moon to develop the prototype of the magical treasure. This step had to be done naturally and could not be assisted by external forces. Otherwise, it would affect the might of the connate treasure. Magical treasures condensed on their own, and the speed was extremely slow. If it was short, it would take 1,000 years. If it was long, it would take more than 1,000,000 years. However, if a higher-grade artifact spirit were to fuse with the refining materials and nurture the spirit item from the inside out, the time needed to condense the item would be greatly reduced. He had never considered what kind of magical treasure he should refine the purple gourd into. The gourd bao seemed to be a good choice. But, Ning Fan's eyes narrowed slightly. He glanced at old man Zhu Gong. The latter's little thoughts naturally could not escape his eyes. After pondering for a moment, he said in a deep voice. We'll talk about the gourd later. Hurry up and refine the 6-colored incense fire arrow. Hey, master, let's talk about this gourd. If you continue to nag, I'll feed you to the blood-devouring bao. Don't. Please calm down, master. I'll refine the arrow immediately. I'll refine the arrow immediately. Old man Zhu Gong reluctantly looked at the purple gourd on the ground. However, he understood that this was not the time for him to think about this gourd. Hey, let's refine the arrow first. As long as I can preserve my life, I can slowly plan for the gourd. Old man Zhu Gong raised his hand and pointed at the purple gourd on the ground. The joss flame of slaughter immediately flew out from the gourd's mouth like smoke. Upon seeing this, old man Zhu Gong sat down cross-legged and clasped his hands together. All the joss flame of slaughter surged towards him and slowly condensed into an illusory arrow. In just an instant, the illusory arrow solidified. As old man Zhu Gong formed a complicated hand seal, the arrow began to change its color. At first, there was only one color. However, the color of the joss flame arrow continued to increase, turning into 2 colors, 3 colors, 4 colors. Every time the joss flame arrow gained more color, its power would increase tremendously. In the end, there was a total of 6 colors in the arrow. The stern killing intent emitted from the body of the arrow was enough to make any thought fragmentation true immortal look askance. The moment the Joss flame arrow condensed, old man Zhu Gong stood up abruptly and quickly let go of the gourd, as if he was afraid of touching the arrow. The Joss flame arrow flew up on its own and slowly hovered in the cave. The arrow intent it emitted made people feel suffocated. Indistinctly, the roar of an ancient dragon could be heard from the arrow. It carried an extremely vicissitudes of life. Hee, master, please take a look. The six-colored Joss flame arrow has been refined. Old man Zhu Gong said to Ning Fan carefully with a smile. The quality of this six-colored Joss flame arrow was average. It was neither high nor low. Even if he performed normally, he was not sure if Ning Fan would be satisfied with it. The time it took to refine this arrow was extremely short. However, it consumed 1/10 of the power of the old man Zhu Gong's Bao spirit. He needed time to recover. A six-colored Joss flame arrow had consumed 1% of the Joss flame of slaughter in the gourd. Judging from the huge amount of Joss flame, the consumption was not small. Ning Fan's eyes flickered as he glanced at the arrow. With a wave of his palm, the six-colored Joss flame arrow stopped hovering and slowly descended into Ning Fan's palm. As soon as he grasped it, the body of the arrow ignited with a dazzling six-colored flame. Suddenly, an illusion appeared in front of Ning Fan's eyes. It was as if there were billions and trillions of barbarians kowtowing to him with tears of blood in their eyes. They worshipped him unwaveringly for tens of thousands of years. The aura of the Joss flame of slaughter was too strong. The illusion disappeared in a flash. Ning Fan's mind was quickly awakened by the scorching heat in his palm. The Joss flame arrow in his palm was terrifyingly hot. It was as if everything that came into contact with this arrow would burn. A powerful force came out from the arrow and shook Ning Fan's palm open. It flew out of Ning Fan's hand and flew up again. Ning Fan's body swayed as he was shaken by the huge force. He took 10 steps back in the cave. His eyes turned solemn. When he opened his palm was scorched and emitted a foul stench. I can't even hold this arrow with my intermediate truth-crossing realm cultivation base. Ning Fan's eyes widened. Seeing that Ning Fan dared to hold the arrow with his bare hands, the Candlebow old man was slightly startled. Then, he shook his head and sneered. The six-colored Joss flame arrow's slaughter chi was too strong. Even a thought-breaking old monster would be burned by the Joss flame of slaughter if he touched this arrow. Even he, the Bao spirit who refined this arrow, didn't dare to touch it. This arrow was extremely powerful. It could kill an early thought-breaking realm expert in one shot. However, one needed to be qualified to control this arrow. Not everyone had the qualifications to control this extremely special Joss flame arrow. In the Candlebow old man's eyes, only his first master, ancestral dragon Zhu Li, had the qualifications. Master, are you alright? What? You were burned by the Joss flame arrow? I saw it with my own eyes and my heart ached. Damn it. Little Bao really deserves to die. I forgot to remind Master that this arrow can't be touched casually. With Master's intermediate truth-crossing realm cultivation base, only by taking a pill that can resist the slaughter chi can you touch this arrow. Little Bao old man's previous master said that one needs to be qualified to control this arrow. The Candlebow old man's face was full of worry, as if he was extremely concerned about Ning Fan. However, in his heart, he was gloating. Naturally, he was gloating because Ning Fan overestimated his own strength. He tried to use his intermediate truth-crossing realm cultivation base to hold the arrow with his bare hands. In the end, he brought disgrace upon himself and got burned by the arrow. This fiend is really overestimating himself. His cultivation base is only at the middle stage of Duzhen stage, but it is like holding the six-colored incense arrow. Even the former master only dared to hold the arrow with his hand after he cultivated to the 10,000 ancient immortal venerable realm. The previous master said that in order to control this arrow, cultivation base alone isn't enough. He also needs a trace of enlightenment. It seems that only after understanding something, would one have the qualifications to completely control this arrow. Otherwise, even if he borrowed the power of the pill to forcibly control this arrow, he would only be able to unleash a small portion of the arrow's power. What a pity. This malefic star doesn't seem to have this qualification. While the candle-bow old man was gloating, Ning Fan was thinking about the word qualification in his words. Is there still a need for qualification to control this arrow? Ning Fan activated the star art. The burn on his palm was immediately healed under the starlight. The ghost face faintly revealed a sense of excitement. Baleful qi gradually surged out from his body. Ning Fan raised his hand again and grabbed the Joss flame arrow that was hovering above him. The arrow was directly pulled into his hand. As soon as the arrow entered his hand, it emitted a huge force, trying to break free from Ning Fan's palm. The huge force caused Ning Fan to take a few steps back before he stabilized his body. His eyes were filled with determination. He would never let go of the arrow. This time, he retreated 9 steps in a row. With each step, he left an inch-deep footprint on the stone floor of the immortal's cave. His chi was slightly messy. But this time, the arrow didn't break free from his palm. His hand wasn't burned at all. Hiss. This malefic star actually used his Dujin cultivation to hold the 6-colored Joss flame arrow without any injuries. The candle-bow old man's heart pounded in disbelief. Even his former master couldn't hold the 6-colored Joss flame arrow without any external force before his cultivation base reached the eternal immortal venerable realm. However, Ning Fan was able to do it. However, it seemed different from when his master was controlling the arrow. Could it be that this malefic star is also qualified to control the arrow like my former master? My former master relied on the power of the Tao law of arrow to control the arrow. Could it be that this malefic star also has some understanding of the Tao law of arrow? But that can't be right. My former master said that if he had some understanding of the Tao law of arrow, he wouldn't be repelled by the arrow and wouldn't retreat. With his eyesight, he couldn't see that Ning Fan was using the power of the innate ghost face to forcefully suppress the power of the Joss flame arrow. Therefore, he was puzzled by Ning Fan's action of taking 9 steps back after receiving the Joss flame arrow without any injuries. Ning Fan looked at the 6-colored Joss flame arrow in his palm. His eyes were filled with seriousness and a trace of confusion. 9 steps. I have clearly used the power of the innate ghost face to suppress the power of the Joss flame arrow, but I was still repelled 9 steps. The reason why I was repelled wasn't because I didn't have enough strength, but because the arrow is rejecting me. The reason why it rejected me seems to be related to the Tao law. If I can't truly subdue this arrow, the power of the arrow will be greatly weakened. Ning Fan remained silent for a moment. He withdrew the power of the ghost face that was suppressing the 6-colored Joss flame arrow. Instantly, he felt a burning sensation on his palm. He had no choice but to let go of the arrow, allowing it to fly again. The power of this arrow was indeed not weak. He had personally experienced the power of this arrow. It shouldn't be a lie that this arrow could kill an early thought fragmentation cultivator with a single shot. This arrow was extraordinary. Moreover, it was only a 6-colored Joss flame arrow. If it was a 7-colored Joss flame arrow, how powerful would it be? It shouldn't be a lie that this arrow could severely injure an ordinary eternal immortal venerable with a single shot. However, Ning Fan had also personally felt that the power of this arrow could only be used to kill a specific target. This arrow was condensed from the Joss flame of massacre. The Joss flame of massacre originated from the hatred of countless dead barbarians. The target of their hatred wasn't only Fan Lianxiu, but also all the enemies who intended to harm the barbarians. This kind of hatred was the hatred of the extermination of the barbarians. It was also a deep attachment to the barbarians. Therefore, the scope of their hatred was wider. From this Joss flame arrow, Ning Fan could feel a will. Anyone who goes against the barbarians, no matter who they are, is the enemy of this arrow. Those who weren't the enemy of the barbarians wouldn't suffer too much damage even if they were hit by this arrow. This was the limitation of the Joss flame of massacre. Unless it was a cultivator who cultivated the Tao of hatred, no one would be able to ignore this limitation and use this arrow to kill innocent people. Now that the desolate land was in a great calamity, the barbarians had a lot of enemies. There were demon cultivators, savage beasts and ancient statues of their ancestors. All of them were slaughtering the barbarians unscrupulously. Therefore, in the desolate land, this arrow could be used to kill savage beasts, demon cultivators, and even the barbarian ancestors of the past. Although it had its limitations, it was still very useful. Candle bow, your 6-colored arrow is very useful. I will let you devour the blood bow. After you devour the blood bow, you can then refine the 7-colored arrow. I want to comprehend this arrow here. Before you devour the blood bow, don't disturb me. After handing the blood bow spirit to Candle Bow, Ning Fan sat cross-legged in the cave dwelling and closed his eyes to meditate. What he was meditating on was naturally the qualification to control the arrow. Seeing that Ning Fan had entered the state of comprehension, Candle Bow naturally didn't dare to disturb him. The current him was already overjoyed when he heard Ning Fan asking him to devour the blood bow. He only wanted to devour the blood bow as soon as possible and was not interested in Ning Fan's matters at all. He chuckled and walked towards Ning Fan step by step. He picked up the blood bow and revealed an extremely wretched expression. He stuck out his tongue and licked the body of the blood bow, as if he was enjoying it very much. Every time he licked it, the spiritual energy of the blood bow would decrease a little and flow into his body. He did not dare to make too loud a sound as he was afraid that Ning Fan would scold him. The process was too beautiful. Fortunately, Ning Fan closed his eyes to meditate and did not look at it. Otherwise, he would probably be disgusted. The devouring process lasted for nearly 3 days. After the devouring was completed, the chi of Candle Bow had increased by a lot. The grade of the bow spirit had obviously improved. Even though there was still a huge gap between it and the innate realm, its grade was already close to the peak of the innate realm. Feeling that the grade of its bow spirit had greatly improved, Candle Bow was so happy that it could not close its mouth. As for the blood bow, it had already been devoured by Candle Bow until not even its bones were left. During the 3 days when Candle Bow devoured the blood bow, Ning Fan had been sitting in the cave dwelling with his eyes closed. During these 3 days, Ning Fan did not move at all. He had been meditating on something with his eyes closed. On the first day, his body was flowing with the power of intent realm. What he was comprehending was the arrow intent. Intent realm was the embryonic form of the great Tao. It was the power that a first-step cultivator would comprehend in their lifetime. With Ning Fan's mid-true crossing realm cultivation base, it was not difficult for him to comprehend the arrow intent realm. As time went by, the power of the arrow intent continued to increase. When the second day arrived, the power of the arrow intent had completely turned into the power of the Tao of arrow. On the second day, Ning Fan was comprehending the Tao of arrow. The Tao of arrow in Ning Fan's eyes was to never turn back once the bow is drawn. The word arrow referred to moving forward with an indomitable will and having no regrets once the bow is drawn. Ning Fan's Tao was about persistence. The Tao of arrow also had some traces of Tao persistence. Therefore, it was not difficult for him to comprehend it. It was Ning Fan's first time calming himself down to comprehend the Tao of arrow. It was also the first time he felt that his personality and the Tao of arrow were so compatible. On the third day, the power of the Tao of arrow was still flowing in his body. However, within that power, there was gradually something that he could not explain. His entire body seemed to have turned into an arrow. An arrow that would never turn back once the bow is drawn. The laws of the Tao of arrow constantly converged in his surroundings. Those were the laws of the Tao of arrow that existed between heaven and earth. He could sense them but he could not control them. The current me still doesn't have the qualifications to command the arrows. However, there will be a day. On the third day, Ning Fan opened his eyes and stood up. He reached out to grab the 6-colored arrow again. This time, he only took 6 steps back. He did not say anything else. He kept the 6-colored arrow and his eyes swept across Candle Bow at the side. Seeing that Candle Bow had successfully devoured the blood bow and its grade had greatly improved, he ordered it to forge the 7-colored arrow. Hee hee. Don't worry, Master. Little Bao has already devoured the blood bao and its strength has improved tremendously. The success rate of forging the 7-colored arrow is at least 20%. Master still has so much joss flames of slaughter. Little Bao can forge at least 5 7-colored arrows. After I forge the 7-colored arrows, can Master give that gourd? Candle Bao looked at the purple gourd with a covetous gaze. It licked its lips and was still thinking about the gourd. We'll talk about the gourd after you forge the 7-colored arrow. Hurry up and forge the arrow. Ning Fan's eyes darkened. Candle Bao immediately shut its mouth and began to forge the 7-colored arrow eagerly. His expression was extremely conceited, as if it was a piece of cake for him to forge the 7-colored arrow. Soon, however, Candle Bao could no longer feel happy. Forging the 7-colored arrow was to forge one more color on the basis of the 6-colored arrow. Before devouring the blood bao, the success rate of forging the 7-colored arrow was about 10%. After devouring the blood bao, the success rate had increased to 20%. According to the success rate, 20% meant that 1 out of 5 arrows would succeed. The grade of the arrows that failed would stop at the 6-colored grade. Unfortunately, Candle Bao's luck seemed to be bad today. He failed 9 arrows in a row and barely managed to forge the first 7-colored arrow. After that, he failed another 6 times and only managed to forge the second 7-colored arrow. After that, he failed another 8 times and barely managed to forge the 3rd arrow. Before he could forge the 4th arrow, the joss flames of slaughter in the gourd had already been used up. Is this the 20% success rate that you mentioned? Didn't you say that you can forge at least 5 7-colored arrows? Ning Fan's cold eyes swept across Candle Bao. Immediately, Candle Bao was drenched in cold sweat. He kept explaining the reason for his bad luck today. Ning Fan just let out a cold snort and did not comment on his explanation. As a matter of fact, with Ning Fan's experience, he could clearly see that the reason why Candle Bao failed so much today was because of his mentality. This fellow's temperament was really too bad. After devouring the blood bao, his grade rose tremendously and he became complacent. That was why he made so many mistakes during the forging process. To put it bluntly, this fellow deserved to be scolded. He could not be praised or allowed to be complacent. Ning Fan turned his head and looked at the tens of incense arrows that were hovering in the cave. From the beginning to the end, Candle Bao had forged a total of 24 6-colored arrows and 3 7-colored arrows. The power of the 6-colored arrow could kill an early thought fragmentation realm expert with a single arrow. In the current desolate world, the power that forbids immortals was rampant. Perhaps no one below the immortal venerable realm could withstand the destructive power of a 6-colored arrow. The power of the 7-colored arrow could severely injure an ancient immortal venerable. With 3 7-colored arrows in hand, even if he encounters old ancestor poisonous dragon or the ancient statue of a certain barbaric ancestor, Ning Fan would not be afraid. With these arrows, Ning Fan finally had the power to protect himself in the desolate world. Looking at the joss flame arrows, Ning Fan felt like he could see the barbarians kowtowing to him, begging him to take revenge for them. The targets of their revenge were, of course, the murderers who caused them to end up like this. These arrows will eventually come in handy. With a wave of his hand, Ning Fan sealed all the joss flame arrows and kept them in his storage pouch. Seeing that Ning Fan did not blame him for his failure, Candle Bao felt relieved. Then, he began to plan for Ning Fan's innate gourd. Master, do you need my help to nourish that gourd of yours? If you do, I'm willing to do my best to help you. Master, look at this gourd. No matter how I look at it, it looks like a good seed for forging bows. It's really a waste of God's gift if you don't let me nourish it. Master, please give me a chance to repay you. Let me help you nourish this gourd. Old man Candle Bao pleaded bitterly just to get Ning Fan's purple gourd to give him a chance to break the seal. Just as Ning Fan was about to say something, his eyes suddenly turned grim as if he had sensed something. The rain intent in his eyes flashed. His gaze seemed to have directly penetrated the profound Yin world and saw what was happening outside the world. You want the gourd? Sure. I'll give you a chance to perform. Kill all the enemies who come to invade us. What's the harm in lending this gourd to you? Ning Fan pointed at Candle Bao with his index finger. Candle Bao's body trembled and immediately turned back into the form of a dragon-horned longbow. Leaving the gourd in the immortal's cave, Ning Fan held the longbow and stepped out of the profound Yin world. Even though he was separated by the profound Yin world, he could still sense two traces of killing intent rushing towards him from the outside world. Those two traces of killing intent originated from two ancient statues. The statue of the third-generation barbaric ancestor, Fan Jie. The statue of the fifth-generation barbaric ancestor, Fan Xianding. The chi of that female venerated immortal is on this broken continent. Finally, I've found her. In the void, the two ancient giants stepped on the void and headed towards the broken continent. When Mounz and the others who were controlling the flying continent saw the two giants approaching them with monstrous auras, they were all shocked. If they were not mistaken, the two ancient statues that were approaching them were extremely similar to the ancient statues of the sixth-generation barbaric ancestor that they encountered a few days ago. Let's wash up and go to sleep. Chapter 905. Two ancient statue giants stepped on the void and approached the shattered continent. One of them was the statue of the third-generation barbarian ancestor while the other was the statue of the fifth-generation barbarian ancestor. Their auras were as vast as the ancient immortal venerables. The statue of the third-generation barbarian ancestor had a bloodthirsty expression on its face. Tens of thousands of blood banners were circling around its body. The cries of a young girl could be heard coming from the banners. Those blood banners were his divine abilities. The statue of the fifth-generation barbarian ancestor's eyes were empty and cold. Every time it took a step, a burning footprint would appear in the void. Its Tao was fire. The aura of the female immortal venerables is on this broken continent. Finally, we found her. The statue of the third-generation barbarian ancestor smiled cruelly. It had been 2 days since he and the fifth-generation barbarian ancestor chased after Venerable's wise words. This girl is full of primordial yin. The blood of her primordial yin is like a holy healing item to us. Fifth-generation barbarian ancestor, please help me. I can fight alone in this battle. It won't be difficult for me to take down this girl. The third-generation barbarian ancestor stomped on the void. His stone body immediately let out a loud rumbling sound and shrunk bit by bit. His stone body was originally as large as the sky. But now, it had returned to the size of a normal person. However, his body was still made of stone and was glowing with an evil blood-red light. There were still two heads, one crying and the other laughing. Seeing this, the fifth-generation barbarian ancestor also turned smaller. He squinted his eyes and looked at the third-generation barbarian ancestor. Do you really not need my help? It's not a good thing to underestimate the enemy. You know that I'm an expert in the art of tracking. I have a feeling that the statue of the sixth-generation barbarian ancestor has been destroyed by someone. Even his blood soul has been destroyed. I don't know why, but I can sense the aura of death left by the sixth-generation barbarian ancestor on this broken continent. Perhaps, the sixth-generation barbarian ancestor's blood soul has been destroyed by someone on this broken continent. What did you say? You sensed that Fan Lianqiu's blood soul has been destroyed. Hearing this, the third-generation barbarian ancestor was shocked. Fifth forefather, oh fifth forefather, you must have sensed wrongly. If you say that Fan Lianqiu's ancient statue body was destroyed, this old man would still believe it. After all, any slightly more powerful immortal venerable would have a way to destroy my ancient statue body. However, the blood soul in the ancient statue could not be killed by anyone. There are only a handful of powers that can harm us blood souls. In the current wildlands, the strongest cultivators are only some immortal venerables. Their cultivation is limited, so it's impossible for them to harm us blood souls. Don't worry. Just stay at the side and help me. No one on this broken continent is a match for me. Although that human race female venerable is an immortal venerable, she is still a woman. I have many ways to deal with women. The third patriarch grinned and took a step forward, disappearing from where he stood. He was still extremely far away from the shattered continent, but with this one step, he instantly appeared in front of it. The third ancestor pointed her finger forward and the 10,000 blood banners circling around her immediately whistled out. They all flew up and began to sway in the void. Red sand suddenly appeared in the void. As the red sand spread out, it condensed into a giant, withered hand that pushed at the shattered continent. The force of the push extinguished all the light emitting from the shattered continent, causing it to stop floating in the void. At the same time, an extremely evil murderous intent spread out from the third patriarch's body and pressed down on the shattered continent. I am the third-generation barbarian ancestor, Fan Ku. Today, all the living beings on this broken continent will become my food. No one can escape. The voice was as powerful as a primordial celestial venerable. It was as cold as the call of the dead from hell, causing the people on the shattered continent to exclaim. No one expected to encounter an enemy with the strength of a primordial celestial venerable here. A moment later, the crowd was even more astonished. This was because they realized that it was not one primordial celestial venerable that attacked them, but two. After the third progenitor appeared, the fifth progenitor also appeared. His aura was shocking. He had reached the primordial celestial venerable level. The enemies are primordial celestial venerables, and there are two of them. Some cultivators exclaimed. The third progenitor, Fan Ku, and the fifth progenitor, Fan Xianding. There's no mistake. Both of them are the ancestors of the barbarian race, just like the sixth progenitor. Many barbarians exclaimed. It was their ancestors who had descended, but there was no joy or belief in the barbarians' eyes. There was only fear, anger, unwillingness, and confusion. The third progenitor's words were very clear. The barbarians here were only food for the third progenitor. That was all. Food. What a sorrowful term. The barbarians were only food in the eyes of the barbarian ancestors. Fortunately, they had already been disappointed once. Although there was still sorrow in their hearts when they heard the same words, the sorrow had faded away. Now, they had a new belief. Compared to the barbarian ancestors, they were more willing to believe in a foreign cultivator named Zhao Jian. Interesting. This is extremely interesting. There are human cultivators, savage beasts, and barbarians here. What kind of combination is this? What puzzles me the most is that the barbarians are looking at me with no respect at all. The savage beasts are also looking at me with murderous intent. Hee, what a rude gaze. You barbarians, why aren't you kneeling when you see me? Kneel, for me. The third progenitor retracted her smile and snorted coldly. A pressure that came from her bloodline immediately pressed down on the entire broken continent. The human cultivators couldn't feel the pressure, but as savage beasts and barbarians, they had to submit under the pressure of the bloodline. The blood of the 200,000 savage beasts was boiling. Under the pressure of the third progenitor's bloodline, all of them began to tremble and prostrate on the ground. The millions of barbarians immediately knelt on the ground when they were suppressed by the pressure of the bloodline. The faces of these barbarians were filled with unwillingness. They were unwilling to kneel. With the collapse of their belief, they would rather die than kneel to the third progenitor. However, kneeling or not kneeling was not up to them. Under the pressure of the third progenitor's bloodline, none of the barbarians dared to defy her, even if they were unwilling. Why? Why must we kneel to such an ancestor? I'm not willing, I'm not willing. Zhao Dai tried her best to straighten her knees, unwilling to kneel. She bit her lips until blood trickled down. She was unwilling. She would rather die than kneel to an evil ancestor who treated the barbarians like dogs. However, under the pressure, a weak person like her was like a withered leaf in the wind. She wobbled and was about to kneel on the ground. Suddenly, Immortal Loli stretched out her small hand and patted Zhao Dai's back. With that pat, a cool lightning force immediately flowed into Zhao Dai's body, dispersing the pressure on her body. Zhao Dai heaved a sigh of relief and thanked Immortal Loli. Thank you, Xian Xian, Hee, no need to be so polite. Immortal lowly smiled and took a bite of the lightning pill. Then, she raised her head and looked at the third progenitor and the fifth progenitor. She only lost her memory, but she wasn't a fool. How could she not see that the two barbarian ancestors were great enemies? She didn't understand what the barbarian ancestors meant, but she could see that the two barbarian ancestors were extremely similar to Fan Lianxiu. The bodies of these two old men are made of stone. Inside the stone, there's a blood soul. Just like that old man blood soul. I can fight one of these old men, but I might not be able to defeat two of them. Should I call Daddy for help? No. Daddy is in seclusion now. I can't disturb him. Forget it, I'll fight two of them alone. Immortal Loli was about to make a move when she suddenly exclaimed softly. At the same time, Immortal Concubine Zhongyu, Earth Demon and Iron Crow Daoist also raised their heads and looked at an empty void. At that place, an enchanting female cultivator in a pink dress appeared slowly. Her pretty face was covered in frost. It was Venerable Miao Yen. Other than the four of them, no one else knew how Venerable Miao Yen appeared. Venerable Miao Yen was originally watching the scene outside through the window, but now, she had no choice but to make a move. She had been unconscious for 3 days and only woke up when she was taking a bath. Not long after she woke up, she sensed two ancient statues approaching from afar. If Venerable Miao Yen's senses weren't wrong, the reason why the two of them came here was to track down her aura. These two are the ancient statues. With just a glance, she recognized the third and fifth ancestors. They were the ancient statues summoned by Patriarch Poisonous Dragon. She learned many things from the servant girl Tong. She knew that there was an ancient statue of the sixth barbaric ancestor on this broken continent. With her wisdom and experience of guarding the wildlands for many years, she immediately understood what was going on when she heard the third ancestor's name. What Patriarch Poisonous Dragon summoned back then was probably all the ancient statues of the seventh barbaric ancestor in the history of the barbarians. The rotation of the ancient statues was an indispensable part of the blood sacrifice in the wildlands. If they could destroy the ancient statues, they could slightly hinder the demon's plan. Fellow Daoist Zhao Jian and his daughter have already destroyed the sixth ancestor's ancient statue. The two statues in front of us are the third ancestor and the fifth ancestor. My injuries are very serious. Although I've recovered some of my strength during the 3 days I was unconscious, it's still far from enough to fight against an immortal venerable ancient statue, let alone two of them. When I fought against Du Longzi in the past, I suffered a crushing defeat in the hands of that ancient statue. That ancient statue was much stronger than the two statues in front of us. It's very difficult for me to fight against the two of them now. Should I ask for fellow Daoist Zhao Jian's help? Venerated Miao Yen had already scanned the broken continent with her spirit sense for more than 10 times. However, she could not find Ning Fan at all. According to Tong Ning Fan seemed to be in seclusion at this moment. She walked gracefully. Every time she stepped on the void, a ray of purple starlight would be embellished in the void. Her brows were tightly knitted together as she walked towards the third and fifth ancestors. The two of them had come for her. She was destined to not be able to stay out of today's matter. Also, she had never planned to stay out of it. Third ancestor Fan Jia, fifth ancestor Fan Xianding. I'm very curious about why the barbarian ancestors who had died in the ancient times were resurrected. What I'm more curious about is why the barbarian race has always been at odds with the foreign races. Why are you helping the demons to sacrifice the wildlands? Can the two of you answer my doubts? The fifth ancestor only smiled coldly in response to venerated Miao Yan's question. He did not intend to answer her. The third ancestor's eyes, on the other hand, were filled with evil intent. He scanned venerated Miao Yan's body again and again. His gaze lingered on her voluptuous body and he licked his lips greedily. He was originally a cultivator of the Black Evil tribe. When he was still a barbarian ancestor, he would ask the barbarian tribes to offer countless young girls to him every year. Ever since he fell, he had not touched a woman for many years. Venerated Miao Yen who was standing before him was undoubtedly a peerless beauty. Just a glance at him was enough to make his heart itch. Venerated Miao Yan's primordial yin was even more abundant. To him, she was the best human cauldron. He wished that he could immediately take her down, press her under his body and ravage her mercilessly. He wanted to enjoy the sight of her crying under his body. Not bad. Not bad at all. Hee. What a great venerated immortal human cauldron. This cauldron is mine. Barbarian art, barbarian voice of 6 desires. The third ancestor's figure flashed and he directly dashed towards venerated Miao Yan. He raised his finger and pointed at the 10,000 blood flags in the void. Immediately, the enchanting and seductive voices of countless young girls came from those blood flags. The voice was invisible, but it instantly enveloped venerated Miao Yan. Venerated Miao Yan saw the third ancestor rushing towards her and was about to resist. However, the devilish voice suddenly entered her ears. Her pretty face immediately turned abnormally red and her blood flowed in the opposite direction. For a moment, the flow of magic power in her body slowed down by more than 30%. She could not help but reveal a shocked and angry expression. The third ancestor actually used a sound enchantment technique on her. She was already seriously injured, and now that she was struck by the enchantment technique, it was even more disadvantageous for her to fight against the third ancestor. She reluctantly raised her finger and bit it to draw in the void, drawing lines of purple starlight. The starlight intertwined and formed a formation. Suddenly, a purple soft sword shot out from the formation and slashed towards the third ancestor like a soft snake. The power of this sword is not enough to injure me at all. The third ancestor sneered slightly. His forward momentum did not slow down. He opened his mouth and spat out a lightning bolt that directly broke the soft sword. Immediately, his expression changed slightly. After the soft sword was broken, its power did not decrease but increased instead. It split into 2 and slashed towards his left and right. He had to stop his forward momentum and focus on dealing with the 2 swords. He thought that the sword seemed to have the ability to split and multiply. If that was the case, he could not casually destroy the sword. Barbarian technique, barbarian fish swallows the sea. The third ancestor's hand seal changed and a giant barbarian fish shadow immediately appeared between heaven and earth. It directly swallowed the 2 sword shadows into its stomach. This technique was a secret technique passed down by the barbarian tribe since ancient times. As long as one's cultivation level was high enough, this technique could swallow everything in the world. The 2 sword shadows were swallowed by the barbarian fish, and immediately disappeared along with the gradually dimming fish shadows, without the slightest trace of power. Seeing this, venerated Miao Yan once again bit her finger and pointed in the void 72 times at lightning speed. In the void, 72 ancient stone pillars immediately rose. They formed an array with each other and trapped the third ancestor in the array. As soon as the third ancestor was trapped, the 72 stone pillars immediately lit up with countless runes and emitted an extremely ferocious killing intent. The fifth ancestor's expression changed slightly. He wanted to help the third ancestor break the array but was stopped by the third ancestor. "It's just a small array, I can break it with a raise of my hand." Fifth ancestor, "Don't even think about doing anything. My name is Fan Xie. The word Xie is the root of my divine power. You can't stop me. Abolish the 100 schools of thought and respect the barbarian technique alone." The third ancestor put his palms together and a giant scarlet shadow appeared behind him. The giant shadow suddenly raised its hand and pointed a finger at the 72 stone pillars. With just one finger, the 72 stone pillars turned into ashes in an instant. Then, it pointed at venerated Miao Yan. Venerated Miao Yan's primordial spirit immediately felt a sharp pain and showed signs of collapsing. This finger could destroy all divine powers apart from the barbarian technique and kill all non-barbarian cultivators. Hee, this move of yours is too powerful. This sister has yet to recover from her injuries and can't take this move. Let's switch. With a flash of lightning, Immortal Loli instantly appeared in front of venerated Miao Yan. She pressed her small hand forward and an incomparably huge silver lightning diagram appeared in front of her. In the lightning diagram, the lightning chariot that was close to level 10 slowly appeared and fired a cannon. The chilling power of dark thunder immediately made the third ancestor's heart shudder. The divine power of the giant Scarlet Shadow's finger was directly destroyed by the lightning chariot's thunder cannon. The thunder cannon did not lose its momentum and directly attacked the third ancestor. Not good. Fifth ancestor, help me resist this cannon. The third ancestor was shocked. He flew back and shouted coldly. The fifth ancestor was also shocked. The thunder cannon's attack gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. It was as if even their ancient statue bodies that were comparable to venerated immortals couldn't take this cannon. There was no need for the third ancestor to ask for help. He had already planned to help from the side. The fifth ancestor pointed his index finger forward and suddenly, a flame giant appeared in front of him and knelt down in front of the thunder cannon. This was the divine power that the fifth ancestor was most proficient in, the fire worship technique. As he kowtowed, a giant flame palm appeared in front of the thunder cannon and directly grabbed at the cannon. The third ancestor who was retreating saw the fifth ancestor's attack and no longer retreated. He controlled the tens of thousands of blood banners and turned them into one banner. With the banner in his hand, the third ancestor's aura changed. He waved the banner and the rolling red sand immediately rolled towards the cannon. Under the bombardment of the three divine powers, the world there cracked from the middle and showed signs of collapsing. The result of the collision was that the thunder cannon did not gain any advantage and neither of the two barbaric ancestors gained any advantage. What a powerful lightning chariot! This little girl is quite amazing. The third ancestor and the fifth ancestor glanced at Immortal Loli and were secretly shocked. Venerated Miao Yen smiled gratefully at Immortal Loli. She had already heard about Immortal Loli's formidable battle achievements from Tong Air. Thus, she was not too surprised. However, she was very curious about Immortal Loli's identity. She was actually able to display the secret chariot technique of the Extreme Lightning Palace to a level that was close to the 10th grade. Immortal Loli was Ning Fan's daughter. What was Ning Fan's background? As expected, it's very difficult for me to gain any advantage when these two old men join hands. Immortal Loli's small face was slightly pale. To her, using the lightning chariot that was close to the 10th grade was still a huge burden. The consumption of the cannon was not small. It would be fine if she could kill an ancient statue in one shot. However, it was too disadvantageous for her to not gain any advantage from the cannon. Even though this little girl's lightning chariot is powerful, it seems to be a little difficult for her to activate it. Her pale face is the proof. I don't think she can use such a powerful lightning chariot for too many times. The fifth ancestor noticed Immortal Loli's expression and sneered. That's right. She's just a little girl. There's nothing to be afraid of. The third ancestor calmed herself down and chuckled. This little girl's skin is very beautiful. Even though her bones have yet to grow, if I pluck her, perhaps, it'll be a different kind of taste. This cauldron is very good. Let's take it as well. Barbarian technique, slave technique. The third ancestor suddenly raised the blood banner in her hand to the sky. As the banner swayed, the stone statue of a barbarian girl immediately appeared in the void. The girl on the stone statue was completely naked. Her expression was charming and her eyes had a magical power that could captivate one's soul. In the beginning, there was only one stone statue. Then, the second, the third. In just a few breaths' time, millions of stone statues of young girls had appeared in the sky. At this moment, all the women, be they cultivators or barbarians, had their bodies petrified. This technique seemed to be able to turn any woman whose cultivation base was lower than the third ancestor into a stone statue and become her own slave. This technique was specially used to restrain the female cultivators in the world. Not good. Venerable Miao Yan's beautiful face was filled with shock. She realized that the moment the stone statues of young girls appeared, her body stiffened and she couldn't move. The area below her ankles had been petrified and the petrification was spreading upwards bit by bit. She couldn't move or resist it. Immortal Loli's face was also filled with shock. Her body also began to petrify. She couldn't resist the petrification even though she was a woman. Fairy Cold Dance, Zhao Dai, Lu Yan, Tong Air, each of the women showed signs of petrification. Even immortal concubine Zhang Yu was petrified bit by bit. She wanted to cry but no tears came out. She wanted to cry but no tears came out. She really wanted to ask the heavens what kind of sin she had committed. Ever since she followed Ning Fan, she had never had a moment of peace. Wherever she went, there would be countless dangers. She even encountered such an evil Yin slave technique. The Yin slave technique was definitely a famous bewitching technique in ancient times. Other than an expert in bewitching techniques like Great Emperor Ancient Chaos, perhaps no one could create a bewitching technique that was more powerful than this technique. The third ancestor's ability is too powerful. It's especially effective against female cultivators. Is there any male cultivator here who can fight against them? Countless cultivators exclaimed. Among the male cultivators on the Broken Continent, Mounz and the other three Broken Thoughts were probably the strongest. Before Earth Devil and Taoist Iron Crow recovered their strength, they would be ranked behind them. Mounz and the other three human Broken Thoughts' expressions changed drastically. They knew very well how strong they were. All of them knew that even if they combined the strength of all the human male cultivators here, they would still not be a match for the two barbarian ancestors. The strongest male cultivator here was undoubtedly Ning Fan. Perhaps only he had the strength to fight against the two barbarian ancestors. However, Ning Fan was still in seclusion and had yet to show himself. Fellow Taoist Xiao Jian. Quickly come out of seclusion. Now isn't the time to go into seclusion. If you don't come out now, all of us will be in big trouble. Mounz and the others were secretly anxious, but the third ancestor's face was filled with a complacent smile. His spirit sense scanned the Broken Continent again and again. There were only two people who could pose a threat to him in this place. One was Immortal Loli and the other was venerated Immortal Miao Yan. Both of them were currently immobilized by his ability. As for the rest of the people here, none of them was worthy of his attention. Fifth Ancestor. After I subdue all the women here, you will kill all the men here. Kill these wild beasts as well. The third ancestor snorted disdainfully. His figure flashed and appeared in front of venerated Immortal Miao Yan and Immortal Loli. Then, he pointed his index finger forward. A scarlet rune coiled around the tip of his finger. It was the Yin slave talisman. If he planted this talisman into venerated Immortal Miao Yan and Immortal Loli's bodies, the two of them would never be able to betray him for the rest of their lives. Of course, he did not need their loyalty. What he needed was the primordial Yin in their bodies. That was all. It's over. Just as the third ancestor finished his cold words, his expression changed drastically and he retreated immediately. However, at this moment, a dazzling seven-colored light appeared in the sky for some reason. Once the seven-colored light appeared, it immediately closed in on the third ancestor. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to see what was inside the seven-colored light. Only a few people could clearly see the figure inside the seven-colored light. It was a cold-looking young man with a dragon horn in his hand. He had a ghostly face and silver hair. His body was surrounded by a red glow and his evil chi was several times stronger than the third ancestor's. There were a total of 27 arrow shadows hovering around the young man. Some of them were 6-colored, while others were 7-colored. When the arrow shadows merged together, the third ancestor did not dare to face their ferocious aura. His appearance caused the originally furious Immortal Loli to immediately reveal an excited smile. His appearance shocked venerated Immortal Miao Yan. She recognized his aura. It was very similar to the aura of a junior that she had saved in the past. His appearance put Zhao Dai at ease. It was as if as long as he was there, even if all 7 barbaric ancestors were present, they would not be a threat. His appearance caused the faces of the 3rd and 5th patriarchs to fall. After looking at him for a moment, they didn't say a word, but instead fled. He is Ning Fan. He has come. Father, quickly break this evil technique. Xian Xian is about to become a stone statue. Xian Xian is so scared. Immortal Loli giggled and said, without the slightest bit of fear.